fascinating pieces that I have read in the New York Times in a long, long time. Elliot Kukla, K-U-K-L-A, is a rabbi and a trans person, and wrote this amazing op-ed. If you subscribe to the New York Times, and maybe even if you don't, I'm not sure if it's behind the paywall or not, it's really worth reading. It's titled, "Ancient Judaism Recognized a Range of Genders. It's Time We Did Too." And I think this is particularly fascinating because Christianity is built on ancient Judaism. In fact, it's built on Judaism from 2,000 years ago. So, you know, modern day Judaism, whatever it says or doesn't say, not so relevant to Christianity, but ancient Judaism, that's really where Jesus was a Jew, right? Mary and Joseph were Jews. I mean, this is where it all began. So what Rabbi Kukla is, I'll just share some quotes from the article with you. Transgender and non-binary young people who, first of all, this is just, you know, contemporary information. Transgender and non-binary young people who live with even one accepting adult were 40% less likely to report a suicide attempt in the previous year. This year, more than 450 bills have been introduced in 44 states, according to the Trans Legislation Tracker, that make it harder for transgender and non-binary youth to get the support, respect, and health care that they need in order to survive. So that's how bad it is. So what does ancient Judaism have to say about, you know, the diversity of genders? This is what Rabbi Kukla says. He says, there are 4 genders beyond male or female, in other words, 6 altogether, in ancient Jewish holy texts that appear hundreds of times. They're considered during discussions about childbirth, about marriage, about inheritance, about holidays, about ritual leadership, and much more. He says, when a child was born in the ancient Jewish world, it could be designated as a boy, a girl, a tutum, who is neither clearly male nor female, or an androgynous, who has both male and female characteristics based on physical features. This is just looking at a newborn baby. So right off the top, you've got 4 genders immediately recognized at birth. He goes on to say there are 2 more gender designations that form later in life. The Elonit is considered female at birth, but develops in an atypical direction. And the Saris is designated male at birth, but later becomes a eunuch. Now, he notes that these categories don't, you know, absolutely overlap with, you know, trans, lesbian, gay, you know, gay male, those kinds of things. But he says people who are more than binary have always been recognized by my religion. We are not a fad. And in some ways, this article is pushing back on this idea that Republicans are promoting with all their anti-trans legislation, and frankly, even their anti-gay legislation, and you know, and the whole you know, let's pray the gay away, or let's have anti-gay therapy, or gay restorative, or anti, you know, whatever. And the theory that Republicans are promoting is that this is all brand new stuff. Accepting gay people, having trans, being trans, that's all brand new. Well, it's not. It turns out it goes back thousands and thousands of years, at least in this one religion. And of course, we see these, I mean, there's been lots of other writing about Aboriginal and Indigenous people who recognize multiple genders, male, female, male who like male, female who like female, male who become female, female who become male. These are all recognized in most Aboriginal and Indigenous traditions, or at least in many of them. So anyhow, he goes on to say, according to one 5th century interpretation of the Bible, keep in mind, this is the year 400. The very first human being, Adam, was actually an androgynous. This explains why Genesis says, quote, and God created humankind in the divine image, creating it in the image of God, creating them male and female. Now, at that point in time, all there was Adam. He says them in this ancient interpretation refers to Adam, a single person who is both male and female. Which makes sense, because then, according to the Bible, then Eve came out of Adam, right? So the female part came out and became female, whatever. So the bottom line here, he says, we're all individuals. Transliberation is a gift to everyone because it expands the categories for what it means to be human. And then, he notes the growing wave of anti-trans bills in the United States represents not just a trans crisis, but a humanitarian crisis. History has shown countless times that when a government limits one group's legal rights, it will eventually do the same to other groups. So true. I found that just absolutely fascinating. The Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online. We also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. Only 2 days left, arguably 1 day left. That's, tomorrow, Friday. Today, you add to that, I guess you get 2 days, but only 2 days left. We're getting down to the tail end of this pledge drive, this fundraising drive. And frankly, Monday and Tuesday this week were disasters. We raised very, very little money. I don't know if my pitch wasn't strong enough, or people just were exhausted from the last week, or I don't know what it was, but I got to tell you, we need your help. We need you to pitch in these last 2 days. In particular today, we are trying to unlock that $10,000. We needed 1,000 donors Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today, and we are not even halfway there yet. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Particularly if you've never before contributed to Free Speech TV, but even if you have, call now and make your contribution and help us unlock that $10,000 from this great group of frontline funders. We really, it's a big deal. 10 grand is a lot of money for this little network. So please do that. If the threshold is we have to get 1,000 donations on Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today. And if we get that 1,000 donations, we get an extra $10,000. If we don't, we don't. And of course that, amplifies your contribution. I mean, whatever you may give, it becomes amplified by that addition of the $10,000. And I believe we can do it. I've seen the numbers from, last week and other days, and we've had a couple of really soft days, but I believe we can do it, particularly because these are the last days, right? This is, today and tomorrow, this is it. This is the end of the summer pledge drive until, the fall. And we can't let this network down. We can't, not pay the bills. We can't lay off employees. We can't do any of those things. We've got to keep things going. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution online. You can do it anytime. You can, but please do it today so that we get credit for this so we can unlock that $10,000. But this is a big deal. And we're getting down to the end here, and we need your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There are, of course, premiums that come along with your donation, things that you can receive if you make your contribution now. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Clear sticker. This is a cling plastic sticker that fits on the window of your car or at home or whatever. Put it on a mirror, or which is really kind of nice. It's kind of cool. I have one at home. You can stick a glass or cup in it, and it'll hold your beverage and keep it cool in the summer. It's a useful thing. Those are all at your choice. One of those three for a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there is the Summer of Solidarity tote bag. The Summer of Solidarity tote bag is, not only beautifully designed and a nice, high quality canvas tote bag, but you're making a contribution to Free Speech TV. With the $75 gift, you have your choice of either the Free Speech TV baseball cap. It's only available here. This is the only way to get it. Or the official Thom Hartmann program mug, which is also only available to people who watch Free Speech TV and only available during pledge drives. So it's a genuine collector's item, right? With a $75 gift. With a $100 gift, a donation will be made by Free Speech TV to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is, a minority within a minority, a genuinely oppressed group, a people definitely in need of our support and our help. That's with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, which does a deep dive into how this country came about. Where did this idea of democracy even come from? Was it the Greeks? Turns out it wasn't. Was it the Romans? No. It's a fascinating story about what Ben Franklin learned when he went to hang out with the Iroquois, among other things, what the French learned when they were holding these salons. It's an absolutely compelling story. And it also gives us an understanding of why things like Medicare for All make sense in a democracy. Because, the whole idea was we're all in this together. I mean, that was the whole, rather than having kings and serfs, we're all in this together. Everybody has an equal vote. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody derives some benefit, equal benefit from society, at least in theory. I think you'll find it fascinating. That's with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet. Lydia will send out a Zoom link, and you click the link, and poof, I'll be on your computer screen in your home, along with a bunch of other people, and we can have a nice conversation. With a $1,000 gift, we're organizing an in-person meet and greet here in Portland, and we'll be rolling that out in the next few weeks. So those are the premiums, but the important thing is to call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and help us out. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the day to you. We have a lot to talk about. It appears that they have found a debris field in the vicinity of where the submersible went missing around the Titanic at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Basically, when this program ends, 3 o'clock Eastern time, the Coast Guard is going to hold a press conference to talk about this. But this was found by a Canadian ship out there. I want to talk about this, actually. What are we... To what extent is this aggressive response to 5 missing people, including a billionaire, and the spending of millions and millions of dollars in federal and Canadian and British resources to do so? To what extent is that a statement about our priorities as a culture? We'll get into that in a few moments. Also, have billionaires outfitted justices with golden handcuffs? We just learned that Sam Alito's trip to Rome You know, and a luxury 5-star trip to Rome was paid for by the group that brought the lawsuit that turning abortion, and also brought the lawsuit or was a party to the lawsuit. I'm not certain that they brought them both, but they were parties to both of them. The lawsuit that ruled that a coach could lead his team in prayer at the 50-yard line, and it wasn't a violation of the separation of church and state. So anyhow, we'll get into that in a moment. Also in this first hour, a new Geeky Science. Is chicken made from cultivated cells vegetarian? Would you eat it? Interesting question. In our second hour, Phil Ittner is going to drop by, our war correspondent buddy who lives in Kyiv, Ukraine, to give us an update on the counteroffensive and, you know, what's going on with the Russian terror attacks on that country. Also, an FBI agent has been charged, well, not just charged, she's been convicted. She's on her way to prison this week. She was charged with withholding top secret documents from her workplace, taking them home and storing them in her bathroom. Gee, where have I heard that before? Also, in the second hour, a crazy alert. Right-wing culture warriors are now furious because men in romance novels aren't alpha enough. Really? We'll talk about that. In the third hour of the program, Greg Abbott is so thoroughly trying to prevent Democrats from voting that he just banned mail-in ballots from blind people and paralyzed people. And he himself is paralyzed. I mean, this is so bizarre. Also, hurricanes, it turns out, actually speed up climate change, at least with regard to the oceans. Another geeky science. I'll tell you about that in the third hour of the program. So a lot to talk about, plus whatever's on your mind today. But let me start out with my op-ed today from HartmannReport.com. It's titled, "Have Billionaires Outfitted Justices with Golden Handcuffs to Stop Liberal Drift?" You know, we had this story about Sam Alito that just, you know, broke yesterday from ProPublica, that Sam Alito was on this fishing trip to Alaska with Paul Singer. In fact, we had Greg Palestine talking about it yesterday. And, you know, just the airfare for this thing was $200,000 round trip on a private jet. Plus, you know, it was in a fancy fishing lodge, and, you know, and he was there with a billionaire and a couple of other very wealthy people. Why do billionaires have an interest in Supreme Court justices? Well, you know, the way that it's being played in the media, the suggestion is that there's some sort of quid pro quo going on here. You know, like, hey, you know, we got a case before the Supreme Court. Let's take the Supreme Court justice out and wine and dine him, and maybe he'll vote our way. Like it's soft bribery. And, you know, now this latest story, the Sam Alito's trip to Rome, was also funded by a group that had business before the Supreme Court. And they're like, there's nothing wrong with this. This is perfectly normal. No, it's not. But why is this happening? Is this happening because these billionaires are trying to engage in bribes? I don't think so. I don't think any billionaire is going to, I mean, you know, they've got everything they ever wanted or needed. Obviously, there's a sickness there, a psychopathology. I want more. You know, 10 billion isn't enough. I want 20 billion. I get that. But they're not going to bribe a Supreme Court justice to get what they want. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's silly. Similarly, Supreme Court justices aren't going to take simple bribes. So if it's not about bribery, what is really going on here? Well, I think I have the answer. And, you know, I laid out a kind of a prosecutor's brief to make this assertion this morning over at HartmannReport.com, and you can read the whole thing. But, you know, basically, what we have seen throughout most of the history of the United States is that when right-wing justices get put on the court, or certainly in the 20th century, in the last century, when right-wing justices get put on the court, they abandon their right-wing ideology once they have lifetime tenure. Earl Warren was a fanatic right-winger. He was a tough on crime, keep the blacks in line prosecutor in Alameda County. He was a three-term governor of California. He was just a total hard ass. And Eisenhower and Nixon put him on the Supreme Court. They celebrated his appointment. And then what does he do? That was in 53. In 54, he pulls together a coalition for Brown versus Board of Education, ending segregation in schools. That's followed by legalizing birth control and recognizing the right to privacy in Griswold, eliminating prayer in public schools in Engel versus Vitale, defining the right to refuse to incriminate oneself in Miranda, putting a law into place that you have a right to a free defense lawyer, Gideon versus Wainwright, strike down laws against interracial marriage, Loving v. Virginia, ending a form of extreme Southern gerrymandering by requiring all congressional districts to have the same population. Earl Warren, in other words, once he had lifetime tenure, moved out of being a Republican and a right-wing ideologue and into doing what was best for the country. We saw the exact same thing happen with William Brennan. We saw the exact same thing happen with John Paul Stevens. We saw the exact same thing happen with David Souter. Over and over, we saw something very close to that happen with I could go through the whole list. It has happened over with Sandra Day O'Connor. It has happened over and over and over again with these nominees that, they get put on the court as right-wingers, and then they live, once they're on the court, they live as left-wingers. Or not really left-wingers, just doing what's best for the country. Why is this? Well, because once you're on the court and the only party to which you're answerable is the people of the United States, is the general benefit of society, these guys tend to leave behind their right-wing ideology. The right-wing ideology, of course, that embraces hierarchy and patriarchy and all that sort of thing. But something changed about 20 years ago. And in the last 20 years, the appointees, the George W. Bush appointees and basically the appointees since then, and the Trump appointees, they have not swung to the left. They have stayed hard right. Why would that be? Well, in my opinion, it's because these billionaires have reached out to them and are using the most powerful social force that we have, the single most powerful way you can persuade people, which is with friendship, peer pressure. Peer pressure is incredibly strong. So it's not like, Paul Singer and Harlan Crow and Charles Koch. It's not like they're saying to Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito and mark my words, as ProPublica and other news organizations continue to dig into this, they're going to find more billionaires sucking up to more conservative, right-wing Supreme Court justices. But none of them are doing explicit overt bribes, in my opinion. What they're doing is they're trying to keep these guys in the fold, trying to keep them in the right-wing lane, trying to prevent them from doing what David Souter did, what Sandra Day O'Connor did, what Anthony Kennedy did, and the whole long list all the way back to Earl Warren did, which is deciding, hey, I've got lifetime tenure. I think I'll do what's best for the country rather than just what's best for the donor class to the Republican Party that got me this job. Now, I realize there's still a lot of people who think, oh, it's just all about bribery and all this kind of stuff. But, I think it's much more than that. I really, and frankly, I think that this is even more insidious than saying, hey, if you'll vote this way, I'll give you a luxury trip to Alaska to go salmon fishing. I mean, that's just silly, right? That's not what's happening. What's happening is, hey, you're my buddy. You're not going to leave the fold. And we're starting to see this in some of these decisions coming. Well, not starting. We've been seeing this all along. They're staying on the right. I fully expect to see it in the case on student loan default or forgiveness.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So what do you think? We'll be right back. It's 16 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Mike in Lomita, California, listening on KPFK, which is in pledge drive now, among other stations, so be sure to help them out. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. This business involving Oman and Trump and payment for use of his name led me to believe that we need a new word. There's an old word, which is a sort of a euphemism for pleasuring yourself, which is called onanism, the second letter being N as in November.
Yeah.
My proposal is for a word called omanism, which is second letter M, Mike, M as in Mike.
Right.
And
as in Trump getting millions for building a hotel in Oman?
Something along those lines. But my definition for Omanism is pretending to pleasure a party who has bribed you by letting them use your infamous name for promotional purposes.
Uh-huh.
And the looser definition would be to the pretended valuation of something worthless as a subterfuge for bribery. So there it is. The world is free to start using Omanism however they feel appropriate.
I love it. Okay, Mike, our language expert here. Thank you for that. That's a good one. I like that. Appreciate the call. Omar in Herndon, Virginia. Hey, Omar, what's on your mind today?
Tom, thanks so much for taking my call. Remember the phrase, Houston, we have a problem?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And I think Merrick Garland need to investigate the Supreme Court Historical Society. That's where they were all having an event, and they basically, all these billionaires are meeting these Supreme Court people. And there was a gentleman testified to Congress because he wanted to bribe a judge. That's what he went, and he had to make a donation. But this is...
that's an excellent point. I should have included that in my article today, Omar. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I remember that very well. So that's really troubling. But, I met Nancy Pelosi a while back, and I asked her a question, why can't Congress regulate the Supreme Court? And back then she said, I don't want to pick a fight with the Supreme Court. That's going to hurt the Democrats. It's going to make us look bad. Back when we control Congress. I asked her that question in person at an event. And Democrats don't want to do anything about the Supreme Court. But my question to you is, can Biden do anything through executive order to regulate the Supreme Court? Because this is an issue.
No, Article 3, Section 2, Congress shall have the right to regulate the Supreme Court and define exceptions to what it can rule on.
Only Congress.
I mean, it literally says Congress. That word is in the sentence.
Troubling.
So,
what's the status on the memorandum and the Moore versus Harper? I know that was up to the Supreme Court, but we never heard anything about it.
We're still waiting for that decision. It'll probably come down next week.
Okay. Well, we have this is very concerning. And have you noticed the only conservative are the one who corrupt? Kavanaugh was $1 million before he was nominated, and his debt was paid off. Only the conservative judges are being corrupted. You don't hear that about the Democratic.
Elena Kagan, famously, somebody offered her bagels and lox once in an event, and she said, I'm sorry, I don't take gifts. Bagels and lox, for God's sake.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. Nice to hear from you. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. Stay tuned. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be right back with more of the news of the day and your calls. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So we have this major culture war going on in the United States. You've got Republicans trying to ban abortion. They're trying to ban books. Not just trying to, they're actually doing all of these things. Banning books, banning trans girls in sports, attacking basically the entire queer community, whatever they can to try to sow division and hate, promoting Nazi memes, talking about how, Jews are paying to have black and brown people replace white people and all this kind of stuff. Why are billionaires doing this? Why are they funding these people? I mean, billionaires don't care about crime. They live in gated communities with private security. They don't care about public schools. Their kids go to private schools. They don't care about public transportation. They fly in private jets. Oh, yeah, that's right. If they can get us fighting against each other, if they can get us hating each other, we will ignore their efforts to cut their taxes and deregulate their industries. There's a whole video about it at tom.tv. Check it out. Welcome back. So the billionaires in the submersible versus 500 dead in the Mediterranean. Guess which one the media covers? That's the headline over at Daily Kos. And well stated. There is a debris field that has now been found. It looks like, in all probability, this submersible exploded. I read a story early on, 2-3 days ago, and I haven't seen any follow-up to it. So I don't know if it was accurate or not, and I don't know if it's been verified. But the article said that the porthole that they were using, the window, was manufactured and guaranteed to 1,400 meters, as I recall. What would that be? 5,000, 6,000 feet, something like that. I don't do meters to feet well in my head, but, to about a mile down. And the Titanic is about 2 miles down. And, that the guy who owns the company just said, oh, it'll be fine. But what if it wasn't fine? I mean, what if this thing just exploded? But in any case, we've seen the entire planet, or at least our end of it, the United States and Canada. It was a Canadian ship that found the debris field. Spend millions and millions of dollars looking to rescue a group of people who knew what they were up to. They knew what the danger that they were taking. They signed waivers saying, I realize I could die. I will hold you harmless. And this is our problem? Now, I get it. When people are in trouble, we help them. And this has always been the case. Somebody gets stuck on Mount Hood here where Louise and I live, in Portland. Mount Hood's just down the road. It's got glaciers on it. People climb it. A couple of winters ago, 3 people, died up there, in fact. And, we send out expeditions and we try to do what we can. I totally get that. What astonishes me, though, is that last week there was an overloaded boat out of Libya, from Tobruk, Libya, in the Mediterranean, that was on its way. It left Egypt for Libya. And there were 800 people on board who had paid $4,500 apiece. This was big money, at least for the captain of this boat. They were Egyptians, Syrians, and Pakistani nationals. And it capsized. And roughly 500 people died. I mean, they're still looking for bodies. They did rescue 104 people. And that search operation is still going on. A Greek social worker who looked after some of the survivors said she had heard that water ran out on the boat days before it sank, forcing passengers to drink their own urine and suck water from the melting refrigerators. Many of them are suffering severe mental trauma. She said she recalled one survivor who told her that, quote, for 2 hours he was swimming surrounded by the bodies of children, and a young man in his 20s who, quote, wanted to commit suicide, wanted to jump because he couldn't take it anymore. This story got virtually no coverage, at least in the United States, whereas this Titanic submersible has been, nonstop wall to wall. What does this tell us about our society? Or is this just, something we should expect? Hey, we are worried about what happened to rich people. Or was it just the idea of the submersible? It's like something out of a bad, horror film. And we can all empathize with that. Oh my God, what if I couldn't breathe? What? And we'd all love to go down and look at the Titanic, right? Or many of us would. And so maybe there's a higher level of identification with that than with the refugees who are trying to flee Egypt. I don't have an easy answer for this, but I do think it raises some interesting questions. Last point that I wanted to share with you. 2 companies yesterday got approval to sell chicken made from animal cells, from chicken cells, but grown in giant steel vats. They pour it out in these sheets and then they form it into chicken nuggets and wings and things like that. It's real chicken, but it's not real chicken. No chicken died for this chicken, which raises an interesting question. If you're a vegetarian, do you eat this stuff? I mean, it's probably better for you than real chicken because it hasn't been fed hormones and it's not filled with, saturated fats and things. I mean, maybe it's super healthy. Around the world, there's over 150 companies that are developing these kinds of products. And there's now 3 of them in the United States that are making them. Upside has partnered with a San Francisco restaurant called Bar Kren. They're going to be selling it. Good Meat Dishes is going to be served in Washington, D.C. at one of Jose Andres' restaurants. Are you curious? I don't know. I haven't eaten chicken since I was 16 years old. So I don't know if it would gross me out. I mean, I kind of like the vegan chicken tenders, the ones that are made out of soy. They're really good. I'm not sure I would want real chicken. But, you know, I'm not your average person. I haven't eaten, like I said, I haven't eaten chicken in 50 years. What say you?
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
The upside of this phony chicken is that, you know, it's not environmentally destructive, right? Not anywhere near as bad as real chicken or beef or pork. Only 2 days left, arguably 1 day left. That's, you know, tomorrow, Friday. Today, you add to that, I guess you get 2 days, but only 2 days left. We're getting down to the tail end of this pledge drive, this fundraising drive. And frankly, Monday and Tuesday this week were disasters. We raised very, very little money. I don't know if my pitch wasn't strong enough, or people just were exhausted from the last week, or I don't know what it was, but I got to tell you, we need your help. We need you to pitch in these last 2 days. In particular, today we are trying to unlock that $10,000. We needed 1,000 donors Wednesday and Thursday, you know, yesterday and today, and we are not even halfway there yet. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Particularly if you've never before contributed to Free Speech TV, but even if you have, call now and make your contribution and help us unlock that $10,000 from this great group of frontline funders. We really, it's a big deal. 10 grand is a lot of money for this little network. So please do that. If the threshold is we have to get 1,000 donations on Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today. And if we get that 1,000 donations, we get an extra $10,000. If we don't, we don't. And of course that, you know, amplifies your contribution. I mean, whatever you may give, it becomes amplified by that addition of the $10,000. And I believe we can do it. You know, I've seen the numbers from, you know, last week and other days, and you know, we've had a couple of really soft days, but I believe we can do it, particularly because these are the last days, right? This is, you know, today and tomorrow, this is it. This is the end of the summer pledge drive until, you know, the fall. And we can't let this network down. We can't, you know, not pay the bills. We can't lay off employees. We can't do any of those things. We've got to keep things going. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution online. You can do it anytime. You can, you know, but please do it today so that we get credit for this, so we can unlock that $10,000. But this is a big deal, and we're getting down to the end here, and we need your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There are, of course, premiums that come along with your donation, things that you can receive if you make your contribution now. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, student of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV clear sticker. This is a cling plastic sticker that fits on the window of your car or at home, or, you know, whatever. Put it on a mirror, or, which is really kind of nice. It's kind of cool. I have one at home. You can stick a glass or cup in it, and it'll hold your beverage and keep it cool in the summer. You know, it's a useful thing. Those are all at your choice, one of those three for a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there is the Summer of Solidarity tote bag. The Summer of Solidarity tote bag is, you know, not only beautifully designed and a nice, you know, high quality canvas tote bag, but, you know, you're making a contribution to Free Speech TV. With the $75 gift, you have your choice of either the Free Speech TV baseball cap. It's only available here. This is the only way to get it. Or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug, which is also only available to people who watch Free Speech TV and only available during pledge drives. So it's a genuine collector's item, right? With a $75 gift. With a $100 gift, a donation will be made by Free Speech TV to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is, you know, a minority within a minority, a genuinely oppressed group, a people definitely in need of our support and our help. That's with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, which does a deep dive into how this country came about. Where did this idea of democracy even come from? Was it the Greeks? Turns out it wasn't. Was it the Romans? No. It's a fascinating story about what Ben Franklin learned when he went to hang out with the Iroquois, among other things, what the French learned when they were holding these salons. It's an absolutely compelling story. And it also gives us an understanding of why things like Medicare for All make sense in a democracy. Because, you know, the whole idea was we're all in this together. I mean, that was the whole, rather than having kings and serfs, we're all in this together. Everybody has an equal vote. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody derives some benefit, equal benefit from society, at least in theory. I think you'll find it fascinating. That's with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet. Lydia will send out a Zoom link, and you know, you click the link, and poof, I'll be on your computer screen in your home, along with a bunch of other people, and we can have a nice conversation. With a $1,000 gift, we're organizing an in-person meet and greet here in Portland, and we'll be rolling that out in the next few weeks. So those are the premiums, but the important thing is to call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and help us out. Thank you so much. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out. 34 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls on the news of the day. Mary in Chicago. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Yes, I don't know if the very wealthy know, how they're really hurting themselves by, suppressing working people. Mm-hmm. Because if working people actually earned a decent wage, guess what? Where do you think they're going to spend their money? Yeah. But back in those goods and services that most providers, store owners, sell.
No, it's true. Working people spend virtually 100% of the money they make, and therefore giving money to working people is one of the most effective ways to stimulate the economy. In fact, I would say that the money that was distributed to working class people during the pandemic and in the year immediately thereafter, 2020 and 2021, was the reason why we have the inflation, or one of the big reasons. People had buying power, and they went into the marketplace and started buying, and it overheated the economy, and which is why the Fed is trying to dial that back. But you're absolutely right, Mary. And on the other hand, I don't think that billionaires look at it that way. I think they're looking at it like, I want more. And if I have to take it from working class people, I'll do it. And that's why we've seen a $51 trillion transfer of wealth from working class people to the top 1% over the course of the last 52 years. So, I totally get what you're saying.
I know this is politically impossible right now, but they need to reinstate the 90%,
top income tax bracket. I completely agree. I completely agree with you, Mary. Thank you very much. Spot on. Bob in Cardiff, California. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, well, good morning, Tom. I got two short just things to add to what you said. Is one, Earl Warren, you reminded me of all the good things that he did, or a lot of them. And the other is I saw an interview with Eisenhower years ago, and they asked him what the biggest mistake he made as president, and he said it was appointing Earl Warren.
His actual quote was, the two biggest mistakes I made two big mistakes as president, and they're both on the Supreme Court. He was referring to Brennan as well. But yeah, you're right.
Okay, you always want to. One other quick one is when you talked about somebody has made a chicken that doesn't come from a live chicken. PETA, who my daughter has worked for animal rights for 30 years, is PETA had a standing offer of $1 million for somebody that can make a steak that was a real steak, chemically, but didn't come from a living cow.
Oh, they've already made that.
I don't know.
There is funny meat out there. I mean, it's very expensive. It's not commercially available yet, but this was the first chicken. The beef rolled out, a year ago, I think? And now there's groups working on pork and fish. So,
Well, yeah, my daughter works for a different organization now, and I hadn't heard that and I don't know if they made good with their $1 million offer or not. But,
So would you eat it, Bob?
I'd give it a try. I don't eat much red meat anyway. So
yeah, I'd give it a try. I'm curious. My objections when I started out, when I was 17, my objections to eating meat were ethical. It had to do with being an anti-war person and an anti-violence person. But over the years, I've discovered that it's not good for you, by and large.
Yeah. So. Well, my daughter is a vegan. Yeah. But her whole point of her whole career has been animal rights, not veganism. You know. Yeah. No,
I get it. My son is a vegan too, and I'm Louise and I are vegans except for the fact that once a month we go out and have salmon because we just think that it's probably it has nutrients that we need, but the salmon is swimming in rivers that are filled with PCBs and all kinds of toxic chemicals and things, and that stuff is in the salmon. I mean, if they were growing salmon in a vat, with good high quality nutrients, but none of the poisonous stuff that's in the rivers, boy, that would be a deal. I would think it would be good for you. But who knows? Who knows? Bob, I got to run, but thank you for the call. Charles in Miami. Hey, Charles, what's on your mind today?
Well, I don't know where this blame starts at. I can't really say that. We had an idea that this conservative court was so corrupt. And the only things right now that's, reinforcing that is these reporters and the great work that they're doing. But I sort of have to leave some of this blame at the foot of the administration.
The Biden administration?
Yes, at the Biden administration.
The only person the Biden administration has put on the court is Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Right, but I think there was a time when we were saying that we wanted to expand the court. Right. And I don't know if it's because it's institutional. I guess they want to keep things the same as it.
No. What it is, Charles, is that only Congress can expand the court. The president has no say in this matter, other than signing the legislation once it's passed. But Congress has to expand the court, and right now Congress is paralyzed because the Republicans control the House of Representatives, and because you got Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin blocking the ability of Democrats to overcome a filibuster.
So even before McCarthy took over, I'm saying, didn't we have a chance then? Or was Kyrsten Sinema and
I think Sinema and Manchin would have blown it up. It never made its way to the Senate because it never passed the House, but wouldn't surprise me in the least.
And that's what I'm kind of worried about too. It's like we always acquiesce to what the popular thought is at the time. We never put things to the test.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
We always wonder about, what if this doesn't happen or that doesn't happen, instead of actually putting in the hard work. Because look at the Republicans. They voted 50 times against Obama and Obamacare. And they did everything to tear it down. And what I'm saying is, as Democrats, we cannot, just sit down and say, well, this is not going to happen. We got to sometimes put this to the test. We got to make the American people see that, the status quo is not working. And what I'm trying to say is, there's a couple of elections coming up, of course, 2024. We have to make it a priority. We have to make it a priority that this court is corrupt. It's irreversibly corrupt. We can't change anything about it, but what we can do is expand the court. I mean, we have to do something.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Charles. I completely agree. And not just expand the court. I think we also need to put an 18-year term limit on the court, and we need to regularize the appointments, make it so that people get appointed to the court, stagger those appointments so that every president has an opportunity to appoint essentially the equal number of people to the court. Rather than this thing where, Jimmy Carter appoints nobody and Donald Trump appoints 3 people because he can game the system and he can blackmail Anthony Kennedy, and Mitch McConnell can withhold his approval of Merrick Garland for a year and a half. I'm with you. Charles, thank you very much. Tyrone in Harlem, New York. Hey, Tyrone, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Good. What's up?
I think it's a worldwide phenomenon that poor people matter less than rich people.
Yeah.
And the fact that, it's not just an American thing. This is around the world. And the fact that the judges are giving these politicians and are getting money from these big money interests is, 2 things could be true. They could just give it to them because they like them. But you best believe that if there comes a time when their bottom line is dependent on what that judge does or what that politician does, they're going to be looking for favors. Yeah. There's no way, I'm paying for your mother's house, I'm flying you around, I'm getting you on yacht vacation, this, that, and everything, and I'm going to let you turn the blinds eye to what I need.
Well, and Thomas has been very loyal to Harlan Crow. I mean, ever since the 1990s, he's been voting the way Harlan Crow wants. In fact, he recently changed his opinion on an issue. I'm sorry, I don't recall which one it was, but he changed his opinion on an issue because Harlan Crow brought it forward, in my opinion.
Crow said, and Crow straight up said, I wouldn't be friends with Clarence Thomas if he wasn't a judge.
Yeah, exactly.
He said it straight up. So yeah. I think we need to not pretend that these people don't have no serious agenda about maintaining their bottom line. They don't care who it crushes. They don't care.
I'm with you. I completely agree. Tyrone, thank you. Thank you very much for the call. It's 44 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment here on the Thom Hartmann program. Speaking the truths the billionaires who are buying the Supreme Court would really rather you didn't know all about. I'll be right back with you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's your media support group for We the People. Right back with your calls. And welcome back. Susan in Redding, California. Hey, Susan, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's on your mind today?
Thank you. I had a statement about the Supreme Court justices, too. I was wondering if, number one, they just want these justices to look bad enough that, or just to push it to see how far they can, get away with doing things they shouldn't be doing before people start taking action. And the other thing is, I saw something on a history show, where it talked about it was Venice, and when they first started becoming rich and becoming, everybody was on the equal terms where they could, work really hard and get wealthy if they were able to. But when a lot of people started getting wealthy, like in an oligarchy situation, they started creating a club, and they started getting together, and these oligarchies decided they were going to keep the rest of the people from getting in their rich oligarchy club.
Yeah, there's a word for it. It's called lifting the ladder.
Yeah, exactly. And they literally started doing anything, bribing, judges or whoever they had to do to keep everybody else. They literally had a rich man's club, and you couldn't, no matter how hard you worked, you couldn't get there. They set it up. And this just sounds like what they're doing here in this country. It's not just conservatism. It's this rich man's club that they want to keep in control, like they did there, and nobody else can get in.
Yeah.
And that
I agree.
Sounds like what they're doing here with everything. Our judges, our politicians, everything. They're just paying people off to keep themselves at the top, no matter what.
Yeah, this is why Jimmy Carter on this program said we're no longer a democracy, we're an oligarchy. Oligarchy is ruled by a small number of people, the oligarchs, and that's what we have. Susan, thank you. Spot on. Excellent point. Carl in Rochester, New York. Hey, Carl, what's on your mind today?
How you doing, Tom? Hey, I wanted to talk about Adam Schiff and what happened to him yesterday. I think it's a travesty. I think he's probably one of the most qualified people that we have in the government right now to be president. He's a foreign policy expert.
Well, he's running for senator, from California. And I think, frankly, that the censure vote yesterday is going to help him in his race for California senator to replace Dianne Feinstein.
Right. I just got a text from him, and I think it's a fundraiser, and I'm going to donate some money. But I think overall what they've done to him is horrible.
Yeah.
These are a bunch of people who don't have an IQ above 100 who are censuring somebody who's one of our, most intelligent representatives. And that's
thoughtful.
I have strong feelings about that, and I just it's upset me, and I called in to let you know. Yeah,
well, I share your concern, and I thought it was great that yesterday the Democrats were shouting shame, shame, shame as the Republicans were making this vote. And like I said, I think this is going to work to the benefit of Adam Schiff. I think he's going to, what is it? Good living is the ultimate revenge, or there's an old phrase to that effect. And I think that Adam Schiff is going to end up in the United States Senate. I think there's a very, very good chance.
Well, I hope so. And he gave a great speech yesterday too.
Yeah. So we'll see how it shakes out. But Carl, thank you for the call. I share your outrage, but I'm not too worried about Adam Schiff. I think he's going to be just fine. Thanks a lot for the call. It is 48 minutes past the hour, and we'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here, Joe in Chicago. Hey, Joe, thanks for listening to WCPT. What's up?
Hey, I just wanted to follow up on your Supreme Court justice opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's been my impression, having grown up in the 60s and 70s, that when you witness riots in your city due to systemic racism and oppression, environmental destruction from pollution, the horrible issues of abortion being outlawed, not just here, but around the country, that, creates a lot of problems for overpopulation and, and oppresses women. You tend to change with things around you. Normally, the Vietnam War. People looked at the Vietnam War and their opinions changed. Likewise, nuclear proliferation. That it was clear that we had to stop this idea to neutralize all the militaries around the world. Normal people changed. And during the 70s, you had some people that grew up watching the Vietnam War and still felt that we needed to continue that and add more and do more killing there. Those were people that were really disabled with social empathy. They were weirdos, essentially. And many of those people became Republicans and hardcore right-wingers. And those are the people that they've been appointed to the bench of the Supreme Court. They just lack the ability to see the world. They've actually supported torture in recent times. People that have been involved in those administrations. And it's a real problem. And we can see they're not fit for the court because they take these positions that shouldn't have been open to them based on how, what happened with Gorsuch and
But here's the big question, Joe. Why is it that previous conservative Supreme Court justices, John Paul Stevens, Earl Warren, Sandra Day O'Connor, Anthony Kennedy, why is it that previous conservative Supreme Court justices, quote, moved to the left, or at least moved to a reasonable, rational middle ground where they're just interpreting the Constitution and doing what's best for the country? But that hasn't happened in 20 years with the right-wingers.
Right. Well,
I think it's because they're being nurtured. They're being held in golden handcuffs by these billionaires.
So I think yes, but I think that some of it has to do with the way media has changed, and people that were educated was a little bit different back then. Yeah. It wasn't quite as broad spread, and people.
So you think it's public opinion rather than the billionaires suddenly sucking up to these people and becoming their best friends?
I think that these are people that just are immune to reality.
No, I get all that. I totally get your point. That they're looking for sociopaths as a starting point. But the question is why have these people not changed? And the only thing that I can see that has changed is that there is this campaign that Leonard Leo has led, and you've also got the Supreme Court Historical Society in on this, to make sure that the social circle, essentially, that surrounds conservative Supreme Court justices is made up of very, very, very wealthy, powerful people, so that they will increasingly identify on a day-to-day basis, unconsciously, with wealthy and powerful people. And I think that's where it's gone. Joe, thank you for the call. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, Tom, I think you're right. I think it's really comes down to influence. They're buying influence. They're not buying quid pro quo, per se, tit for tat or this, I'm not buying this decision. They're buying, it's something even worse. They're buying influence. And I think you're right, is that, really the history of this goes further back almost 100 years, because I'm thinking, Calvin Coolidge appointed Harlan Fiske Stone, was Calvin Coolidge's attorney general. He appointed him to the court. He became one of the three musketeers. There was the four horsemen and the three musketeers. And then Hoover actually appointed three justices. He appointed Benjamin Cardozo, who was the premier jurist of his day. He was a legend in his own time, and he became one of the three musketeers. He appointed Chief Justice Charles Evans Hughes, who actually wrote the majority opinion in the West Coast Hotels versus Paris. That was the minimum wage case, and he appointed O.J. Roberts, who became the swing vote. He was kind of like an Anthony King, but he's the one who was the switch in time.
I'll give you another one. In 1886, when I was doing research on the Santa Clara County case in the Library of Congress in the National Archives, we found, actually I wasn't the guy who found it, it was a guy who was working with me, a researcher that we had hired. We found a letter, or a series of letters actually, from Jay Gould and from other railroad barons to Stephen J. Field. Stephen J. Field was on the Supreme Court, promising him that if he would rule in their favor in the Santa Clara case and some of the other railroad tax cases, there was a whole series of them that came up to the court out of California, where Field was the circuit judge, that they would support Field in a nomination for the presidency in 1888 or 1902, I forget which election it was, but in one of the upcoming elections.
Yeah. Stephen Field of the Marshall Field department store family.
I didn't know that.
We don't have time, but I just read something about Jay Gould yesterday. He was a kind of a brilliant mathematician.
He was.
But the point is that I think you're right. After John Roberts, the Republicans decided we are going to influence the court. And one thing that comes out, I just read recently that there have been only seven cases in the Supreme Court on guns. 7. 4 of them have been in the John Roberts court in the last 15 years.
Wow.
4 of them. I mean, and they have done everything to expand gun rights while limiting the powers of states to regulate, and that just plays to the gun industry.
Yeah, who was the justice who said that this is the largest fraud, the worst fraud that's ever been perpetrated on the American people, the idea that the Second Amendment confers an individual right to own firearms? It was back in the 1930s, wasn't it?
Oh, that was in the Miller versus, Morrison R. Waite wrote that the Constitution, the right to bear arms was not guaranteed by the Constitution, nor is it dependent upon that instrument for its existence.
Right, and that's Morrison Waite who ruled in Santa Clara in 1886.
Yeah, and he was no liberal.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. Morrison Remick Waite. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is just and by the way, for Samuel Alito to preemptively publish an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal is just brazen. And then the Wall Street Journal comes out with an editorial that says, "Oh, this recusal, this is court sinning," to ask for recusals of these justices. That's just like, they have gotten so arrogant. Samuel Alito is just, and I don't know which one's more arrogant, Samuel Alito or Clarence Thomas, but it is all influence peddling by the billionaires, and clearly we see that in the cases, the certiorari, the cases they're willing to take, is all about serving the rich and their interests. And there's just, I don't see how you can look at it any other way. In terms of these emergency relief cases, in John Roberts' 18 years on the court, they've had, of these shadow relief cases, they've had 4.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at Thom. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We take life back!
Only 2 days left, arguably 1 day left. That's, tomorrow, Friday. Today, you add to that, I guess you get 2 days, but only 2 days left. We're getting down to the tail end of this pledge drive, this fundraising drive. And frankly, Monday and Tuesday this week were disasters. We raised very, very little money. I don't know if my pitch wasn't strong enough, or people just were exhausted from the last week, or I don't know what it was, but I got to tell you, we need your help. We need you to pitch in these last 2 days. In particular, today, we are trying to unlock that $10,000. We needed 1,000 donors Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today, and we are not even halfway there yet. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Particularly if you've never before contributed to Free Speech TV, but even if you have, call now and make your contribution and help us unlock that $10,000 from this great group of frontline funders. We really, it's a big deal. 10 grand is a lot of money for this little network. So please do that. If the threshold is we have to get 1,000 donations on Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today. And if we get that 1,000 donations, we get an extra $10,000. If we don't, we don't. And of course that, amplifies your contribution. I mean, whatever you may give, it becomes amplified by that addition of the $10,000. And I believe we can do it. I've seen the numbers from, last week and other days, and we've had a couple of really soft days, but I believe we can do it, particularly because these are the last days, right? This is, today and tomorrow, this is it. This is the end of the summer pledge drive until, the fall. And we can't let this network down. We can't, not pay the bills. We can't lay off employees. We can't do any of those things. We've got to keep things going. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution online. You can do it anytime. You can, but please do it today so that we get credit for this, so we can unlock that $10,000. But this is a big deal, and we're getting down to the end here, and we need your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There are, of course, premiums that come along with your donation, things that you can receive if you make your contribution now. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Clear sticker. This is a cling plastic sticker that fits on the window of your car or at home or whatever. Put it on a mirror, or which is really kind of nice. It's kind of cool. I have one at home. You can stick a glass or cup in it, and it'll hold your beverage and keep it cool in the summer. It's a useful thing. Those are all at your choice. One of those three for a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there is the Summer of Solidarity tote bag. The Summer of Solidarity tote bag is, not only beautifully designed and a nice, high quality canvas tote bag, but you're making a contribution to Free Speech TV. With the $75 gift, you have your choice of either the Free Speech TV baseball cap. It's only available here. This is the only way to get it. Or the official Thom Hartmann program mug, which is also only available to people who watch Free Speech TV and only available during pledge drives. So it's a genuine collector's item, right? With a $75 gift. With a $100 gift, a donation will be made by Free Speech TV to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is, a minority within a minority, a genuinely oppressed group, a people definitely in need of our support and our help. That's with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, which does a deep dive into how this country came about. Where did this idea of democracy even come from? Was it the Greeks? Turns out it wasn't. Was it the Romans? No. It's a fascinating story about what Ben Franklin learned when he went to hang out with the Iroquois, among other things, what the French learned when they were holding these salons. It's an absolutely compelling story. And it also gives us an understanding of why things like Medicare for All make sense in a democracy. Because, the whole idea was we're all in this together. I mean, that was the whole, rather than having kings and serfs, we're all in this together. Everybody has an equal vote. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody derives some benefit, equal benefit from society, at least in theory. I think you'll find it fascinating. That's with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet. Lydia will send out a Zoom link, and you click the link, and poof, I'll be on your computer screen in your home, along with a bunch of other people, and we can have a nice conversation. With a $1,000 gift, we're organizing an in-person meet and greet here in Portland, and we'll be rolling that out in the next few weeks. So those are the premiums, but the important thing is to call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and help us out. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran war correspondent currently based in Kyiv, Ukraine. Phil has a video blog over on YouTube. PHILIPITTNER is how you find it. That's also his Twitter handle. Phil, welcome back to the program. So how is, first of all, how's life in Kyiv right now? How are you doing?
We're fine here in Kyiv. It's been hot. I'll say that we're having a bit of a heat wave, but we haven't had any massive attacks. We get the occasional air raid siren, but touch wood. We haven't had any massive missile attacks.
So what's the latest on the counteroffensive? I mean, we're getting conflicting reports, frankly, and President Zelensky apparently yesterday acknowledged to a member of the press that things weren't going quite as rapidly as he had hoped.
Yeah, Zelensky has made an awful lot of has made a strong point in that, or he's expressed himself strongly, I should say, in that because of the sheer scale of landmines that the Russians have put in, that's affecting the speed with which the Ukrainians can move forward. He's also saying things like we've known for quite some time, but he is reiterating it. That this is slow and steady wins the race. We talked about this being, if this were a game of American football, that this is a ground game where each time, each down, you get 2 or 3 yards, but you're not going for the Hail Mary, gain 15 yards in one go with a passing game.
Right.
It's going to be chopping off bits and pieces of Russian-held territory, regaining it as Ukrainian territory, and hopefully keeping the casualties low. And also, by moving in this methodical manner all along the front line, that it will stress the Russian positions, more notably the Russian soldiers themselves, and that by doing that, it'll also add to attrition for the Russians. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be fast, but it is just this concept of just slowly moving towards the sea. They're making some advances down in the southern front area, heading towards Crimea directly. There's some talk of moving east, and whether or not they're making progress there. But there's not going to be a massive breakout. I don't think. They might exploit things that they come across, but there's no sweeping blitzkrieg kind of movement of tens of thousands of troops moving in flanking positions and stuff like that. No, it's just every day you wake up, you take a little bit of ground from the Russians. You do the same thing the next day and the next day and the next day, and finally you get to the end zone.
So two questions. One, it sounds like a large part of this is actually kind of psychological warfare, trying to destroy the morale of the Russian soldiers. And two, at what point, Putin has now moved tactical nuclear missiles into Belarus to position them, presumably to more easily hit Kyiv, which is closer to Belarus than it is to Russia. What are the chances that at some point Putin just says, screw it, and pulls the trigger?
Well, let me address the first question you posed there about how much of this is affecting Russian morale. I think that there is a large motivation for the Ukrainians to really put pressure on the Russian soldiers, many of whom are conscripts. They still have some very good professional units out there that are intact, but the mass mobilization that Russia did means that there are a lot of guys out there on the Russian front lines that just don't know why they're there, sort of thing. And they're not properly trained, disciplined, all the rest of it. So by putting pressure on the entire front line, and this is something the Ukrainians talk about openly, they're hoping to exhaust their enemy. Now, secondly, and scary, yes, obviously, nukes. They've moved nukes into Belarus. If indeed Kiev is their target, then I'm going to be, I'm in downtown Kiev, Tom. I'll be atomized, frankly, if that happens. And who's to say it won't? But there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this repositioning of nukes into Belarus. Firstly, sovereignty of Belarus, ostensibly a sovereign nation. There are a lot of people who are anti-Lukashenko, the leader of that country, and they have been very vocal about this isn't just putting nukes on Belarusian territory. This is denying Belarus and Minsk's sovereignty. So there's that going on. There's the fact that in many ways the Russians don't lose anything by moving these nukes over there. So there's talk that nukes are involved, you can't take it lightly. But there is a lot of chatter about it doesn't really change the equation much by moving from Russian-held territory to Minsk, a bunch of nukes. So there's more talk of it being saber rattling. I'd hate for them to be wrong because again, I'm right at I'm at ground zero. Now, would they actually use it? Firstly, the second you use nukes, you're in a completely different ballgame. Everything changes, and they all know it. The Russians know it just as well. Any military, when they're trying to figure out their tactics and their strategical goals, the second you use a nuke, you are in a completely different. It's not using the nuke; it's the day after, or the moment really after you use the nuke that matters. Because once he uses a nuke, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of dead Ukrainians, if indeed this is the target, then the world, everything changes for them, and notably not for the better. And also there's another thing that we have to talk about here is that this is the birthplace of the identity of Russia. There are historical religious monuments which a white nationalist country like Russia has become under Putin are going to be reluctant to do, because this is where their equivalency of Mecca is.
Or Jerusalem.
This is the equivalency, the Wailing Wall. This is Vatican City. There's a place here called the Pecharsk Lavra, which translates to the Monastery of the Caves. And it is where all the patron saints, a vast majority of patron saints in Russian Orthodoxy or Eastern Orthodoxy are interred. This is the birthplace of the identity of what it is to be Slavic and Rus, not Russian, but Rus. Rus would then become Russia when they moved to Moscow after the Golden Horde. I don't want to get into a history lesson, but it's important because the Russians themselves recognize the religious and the heritage that is here that ties them to Ukraine. This has been a shock. I've used this analogy before. There's a shotgun marriage that's been going on for centuries. That was, not even a marriage that Ukraine necessarily agreed to, but the marriage has been there. Now they're going through this divorce. You attack the Lavra or St. Sophia's Cathedral or all these historic, monumentally important to the identity of Russia, which just happen to be located here. It's a devastating thing that they would be doing. It literally would be like blowing up Mecca for, a Muslim nation that's a competitor of Saudi, or somebody who doesn't like Israel to blow up the Wailing Wall. It is. I know because I monitor, the Russian media and the talking points and the folks. This is on their mind as well.
Yeah.
They are very well aware that if they nuke this place, they lose a whole chunk of their history.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's still obviously something we need to take seriously. We need to be concerned about it. I need to be concerned about it because I need to know if I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
But until that time, until that time, I'm standing with these people because they deserve their freedom.
Totally get it, Phil. Last question for this week. All the time, the many times that you've been on this program, there have been portraits or paintings or pictures on the wall behind you. And for people listening on the radio, they can't see these, so you might want to describe them briefly. But I'm curious, what's the significance of those?
Well, that's a take on the painting behind my right shoulder there. That's a painting kind of taken from the postage stamp of the Russian warship Go F Yourself that was made very popular. They modified it to show it as Red Square, the red the red star that is on top of the Kremlin.
So it's kind of an icon of Ukrainian nationalism or resistance to Russia.
And defense, indeed. Yeah. And then going along with the same sort of theme, this is a depiction of Saint Olga of Kiev, who is the patron saint in Eastern Orthodoxy of vengeance and resistance. She was a historical figure back in the 10th century. And she was a boss. Anybody who wants to look up an amazing Ukrainian woman who equals Boadicea in the UK or Joan d'Arc in France. This woman fought against people who would have overthrown Kiev, and she was brutal in her way of doing it. But she is a national hero and a symbol for many Ukrainians who are fighting back against Russian oppression. And then they've kind of taken drones and spotted them there. And then in Russian there, it says release the Bayraktars, which are a Turkish drone. So it's just a symbol of resistance.
Okay. Phil Ittner, you can find his video blog over on YouTube, PhilipIttner. Phil, thanks so much for dropping by today.
Thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So an FBI agent is on her way to prison today. Why is this consequential? I'll tell you right after the break. And welcome back, Ruth in West Los Angeles. Hey, Ruth, thanks for watching us on on YouTube. What's on your mind today?
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I love your show. I always learn things.
Thank you.
However, I have to disagree with you about, the Kumbaya group of the fishing trips and the Harlan Crows and all of that. I agree with the guy that called in influence peddling, and
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I think
that there's not a specific quid pro quo. He's not saying if you'll vote this way, I'll give you a fishing trip. That's not what's going on. What's going on is they're sucking up to them to get them in the fold, to keep them from going left, as Earl Warren did, for example.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought it's a definitely soft bribery.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
But I think it's systemic. It's not specific.
Right. Yeah, but it's still, it's not Howard Hunt's money in a trash can, but it's
Good
the
point.
next thing.
Good point.
But the other thing I wanted to say is, to your point about this, you're the first person, I think, that said something about the window blowout. I hadn't heard that. But, you're a learned man, and the Greek hubris and nemesis. I had just read, yesterday in the Post that there were people that had told him, in fact, some guy who's on a safety committee like that had told him that he needed to be inspected, and he turned it down and said it would, take years, and, he was sure that his, vessel was submersible worthy and all of that. So
and this debris field was not on the surface of the ocean. This debris field is on the bottom of the sea near the Titanic.
Right. No, but the window blowout, your point about the window only being,
so it sounds like it exploded. Is if
Right.
that's what happened, that the thing just couldn't deal with it. It had more weight on it than the entire Empire State Building standing on top of it. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. It's
if your theory or whatever or truth about the window blowing out, it's terrible, because I guess it would have blown inward from the pressure. So
they would have been dead in a microsecond. They would have been dead before they. They might have heard some creaking before the lights went out. But it's not the worst way to die. It's not as I think we were all imagining what it would be like to be trapped. 5 people trapped in a little tiny tube smaller than a car or about the size of a car maybe, that is slowly running out of oxygen and is 29 degrees Fahrenheit. It's that has to be miserable, right? A terrible way to die. But just to have the lights go out suddenly, I'd take that.
Well, it's sad. It's a commentary on, I'm in cardiology, and you just don't skip steps, period.
Yeah.
Basically. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruth. Yeah. Especially when lives are at stake. And that's, very much the case here. I suspect that what we're going to see coming out of this is a brand new rebirth in interest in regulating these kind of vehicles. Although there is some regulation. I know somebody who's a diver who took one of these submarines way down, like over a mile down, off the coast of Honduras, but it had to go to Honduras because it couldn't get licensed here in the United States. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So back in 1933, when Franklin Roosevelt became president, we were in the depths of the Great Depression. He raised the top income tax rate on billionaires from 25% to 90%. The ultra-rich were screaming, and here's what he had to say.
A number of my friends who belong in the very high upper brackets have suggested to me on several occasions of late that if I am re-elected president, they will have to move to some other nation because of high taxes here. Now, I will miss them very much.
He just took it right to them, right? Now, what came out of that was the world's largest and fastest growing and first major middle class. We can do this again. We just have to raise taxes on rich people. It's pretty straightforward. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Welcome back, 23 minutes past the hour. So, you ever heard of Kendra Kingsbury? Kendra Kingsbury was an FBI agent who then retired in Kansas City, retired from the FBI, and a former FBI intelligence analyst, rather, not an agent, intelligence analyst, who was handling top secret classified documents. She took hundreds of these documents home. She stored them in a spare bathroom, and she got busted. The FBI got a subpoena, they got a search warrant, a search warrant. They went in, they searched her home, they found the documents. Her defense was that she wanted to keep them at home. She had, and the judge, this is U.S. District Court Stephen Bow, he said, "I cannot fathom why you would jeopardize your nation, our nation, by leaving these types of documents in your bathtub." But this is the story. This was a federal judge in Kansas City yesterday who sentenced this woman for doing the exact same thing, or damn near exact same thing that Donald Trump is accused of doing. He sentenced her to, I'm trying to see how many years in prison here. 3 years and 10 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. She reports to prison on July 21st. So she's got 4 weeks to get her affairs in order, and, that's it. That, should tell us something about what might happen to Donald Trump. Although, sadly, it probably won't, because Donald Trump is a billionaire and a white guy, and I'm not sure that Kendra, I don't know her race, but very often Kendra is a popular African-American name. Is that a variable in this? Of course. So, anyhow, final story, and this is just a crazy alert. The right-wingers are hysterical now because the big new thing in romance novels is thoughtful heroes. Men who are not just, strong and handsome and muscular, but thoughtful, considerate. And the New York Post put out an article talking about, oh my God, this is so wrong. They're reacting to a piece that was published in Publishers Weekly that was noting that there is a sizable market out there for mild-mannered men. And now they note a cohort of right-wing culture warriors perpetually looking for an excuse to get offended are quite offended. This was back on June 2nd. Publishers Weekly published this article about how there's heavy demand for cinnamon rolls in romance novels. A cinnamon roll, says this writer, is a type of, quote, sweet, supportive, and kind hero that authors are depicting and publishers are promoting. And the right-wingers are just hysterical. And the author of this piece in Publishers Weekly says, hey, it's capitalism. It's free market dynamics at work. You know, people want cinnamon rolls, right? They want thoughtful, considerate, nice, caring male heroes. That's the free marketplace. I thought conservatives are, you know, all up for, you know, this is what they care about is the free marketplace. But apparently not when it comes to thoughtful men. They want their macho men, and in their minds, macho men are, you know, 50 Shades of Gray. They're men who tie up and whip their women. This is so weird. But, you know, it gives us, I think, a significant, consequential, important insight into the worldview of these right-wing conservatives. And who knew that they read romance novels? We'll be back with your calls. It's 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Fair and only slightly unbalanced. I'll be back with your calls right after this. Only 2 days left, arguably 1 day left. That's, you know, tomorrow, Friday. Today, you add to that, I guess you get 2 days, but only 2 days left. We're getting down to the tail end of this pledge drive, this fundraising drive. And frankly, money were disasters. We raised very, very little money. I don't know if my pitch wasn't strong enough, or people just were exhausted from the last week, or I don't know what it was, but I got to tell you, we need your help. We need you to pitch in these last 2 days. In particular today, we are trying to unlock that $10,000. We needed 1,000 donors Wednesday and Thursday, you know, yesterday and today. And we are not even halfway there yet. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Particularly if you've never before contributed to Free Speech TV, but even if you have, call now and make your contribution and help us unlock that $10,000 from this great group of frontline funders. We really, it's a big deal. 10 grand is a lot of money for this little network. So please do that. If the threshold is we have to get 1,000 donations on Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today. And if we get that 1,000 donations, we get an extra $10,000. If we don't, we don't. And of course that, you know, amplifies your contribution. I mean, whatever you may give, it becomes amplified by that addition of the $10,000. And I believe we can do it. You know, I've seen the numbers from, you know, last week and other days, and you know, we've had a couple of really soft days, but I believe we can do it, particularly because these are the last days, right? This is, you know, today and tomorrow, this is it. This is the end of the summer pledge drive until, you know, the fall. And we can't let this network down. We can't, you know, not pay the bills. We can't lay off employees. We can't do any of those things. We've got to keep things going. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution online. You can do it anytime. You can, you know, but please do it today so that we get credit for this, so we can unlock that $10,000. But this is a big deal, and we're getting down to the end here, and we need your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There are, of course, premiums that come along with your donation, things that you can receive if you make your contribution now. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV clear sticker. This is a cling plastic sticker that fits on the window of your car or at home, or, you know, whatever. Put it on a mirror, or which is really kind of nice. It's kind of cool. I have one at home. You can stick a glass or cup in it, and it'll hold your beverage and keep it cool in the summer. You know, it's a useful thing. Those are all at your choice, one of those three for a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there is the Summer of Solidarity tote bag. The Summer of Solidarity tote bag is, you know, not only beautifully designed and a nice, you know, high quality canvas tote bag, But, you know, you're making a gift, a contribution to Free Speech TV. With the $75 gift, you have your choice of either the Free Speech TV baseball cap. It's only available here. This is the only way to get it. Or the official Thom Hartmann program mug, which is also only available to people who watch Free Speech TV and only available during pledge drives. So it's a genuine collector's item, right? With a $75 gift. With a $100 gift, a donation will be made by Free Speech TV to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is, you know, a minority within a minority, a genuinely oppressed group, a people definitely in need of our support and our help. That's with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, which does a deep dive into how this country came about. Where did this idea of democracy even come from? Was it the Greeks? Turns out it wasn't. Was it the Romans? No. It's a fascinating story about what Ben Franklin learned when he went to hang out with the Iroquois, among other things, what the French learned when they were holding these salons. It's an absolutely compelling story. And it also gives us an understanding of why things like Medicare for All make sense in a democracy. Because, you know, the whole idea was we're all in this together. I mean, that was the whole, rather than having kings and serfs, we're all in this together. Everybody has an equal vote. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody derives some benefit, equal benefit from society, at least in theory. I think you'll find it fascinating. That's with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet. Lydia will send out a Zoom link, and you know, you click the link, and poof, I'll be on your computer screen in your home, along with a bunch of other people, and we can have a nice conversation. With a $1,000 gift, we're organizing an in-person meet and greet here in Portland, and we'll be rolling that out in the next few weeks. So those are the premiums, but the important thing is to call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and help us out. Thank you so much. Hey, if you like the rants that I open the show with every day, they're typically published over at hartmannreport.com. Check it out. You know, between 40 years of Ronald Reagan's neoliberalism destroying the American middle class and all the just horrors of January 6th and the Trump presidency, America's waking up, and that's a really good thing. There's actually, some books coming out about this. Mine, The Hidden History of Democracy. Neil Howe's The Fourth Turning is here. And it looks like a moment of American Renaissance is upon us, if our media doesn't screw it up, which raises the question, can we have democracy and Fox News? Can the two coexist? Like, when Fox News runs chyrons saying that essentially Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator who's throwing Trump in jail because he's his political opponent. There's a whole rant about this and an in-depth analysis of what can we do with regard to repairing our media here in the United States over at hartmannreport.com. I think you'll find it interesting. Check it out. So, picking up your calls here, Bill in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing? I'm first-time caller, a bit nervous.
Well, thank you, Bill. I'm glad you called.
Yeah, I love your show. I'm a structural engineer, so the whole concept of this window on the submarine being certified to 1,300 meters, there's a factor of safety, of course, applied to that, right? So most likely it was 3, maybe even as high as 5, so it could go to much deeper than 1,300 meters. The thing is those safety factors are there to cover the unknowns, right?
Right.
This guy sounded like quite a cowboy. I think he was quoted as saying, your regulations are stifling innovation.
Yes, he did say that.
Just imagine, an aircraft manufacturer doing that, or the people that make your car. regulations are there for a reason, and we need them. And the truth of the matter is our conservative friends would love to drown them in a bathtub. Is that the?
Yeah. Robert Norquist about taxes. Yeah. Or about taxes. Yeah.
That just
Size
needs to be fought on every level. You know, the FAA has already kind of handed over some of their regulatory authority to the private companies, and that's just not good.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I think we saw that with the whole Boeing 737 MAX debacle.
Yes, we did. Yeah. So I mean, it's this accident, I hope, kind of points this out to everybody. You know how serious this is. Yeah, these were, a few rich people and all that, but the sad truth is the guy that violated those rules, if you will. I mean, he's dead now, most likely. Yeah. So he paid the price.
Yep. Yeah, it's just that he took four other people with him, including a 17-year-old kid who is really arguably the innocent victim in all this. But yeah, I get it. Bill, thank you.
And to your point, it's probably a good thing if that thing imploded. A better way to go.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll produce some change around these things. Although that's international waters. I don't even know if we can regulate international waters.
We can't.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. All righty. Well, thank you, Bill. Nice to hear from you. And I'm glad you finally pulled the trigger and called. Nancy in Springfield, Oregon. Hey, Nancy, what's on your mind today?
Yes. You were talking about the new fake meat or whatever you want to call it, the manufactured
Yeah, grown
meat.
from cells.
And so there's different reasons people are vegan. So if you're an animal rights vegan, then, hey, go ahead and eat it because no animals died or anything.
Right.
I don't know. A lot of people are vegan because of the environment, less CO2 and the transport of meat and the emissions from cows and so on and so forth. And so I don't know how that's going to compare because, I haven't seen those numbers, but I'm assuming it'll probably be better for the environment.
Yeah.
But then there's some of us, like me, I'm on a whole foods plant-based diet, and
for health.
I have, what?
For health.
For health, yes. Yeah. And I mean, it's animal meat, animal protein is inflammatory. So all animal protein tends to be inflammatory, whereas plant protein doesn't.
Right. Produces inflammation in your body, in other words.
Right. And just yesterday, I had, a shingle shot, and the pharmacist told me, oh, you're going to be tired and sore and everything tomorrow. And my arm was a little bit sore last night, but today I can hardly feel that it's sore. So,
so you're bouncing back
my inflammatory,
quickly, basically.
Yeah, and in April, I came down with COVID, and I hardly knew I had it. And the only reason I tested was because I was going to go to a meeting with some older people, and I didn't want to be spreading the COVID around. So if I had it, and it turned out positive. But, it was, like, no, I don't care if I get COVID because it's just that my social life is limited because I don't want to give it to anybody else.
Sure.
But as far as I'm concerned,
that's thoughtful.
It didn't do much for me. To me.
There's a movie out there called "This Changes Everything," narrated by Arnold Schwarzenegger about vegan bodybuilders. I mean, there's no doubt you can be really healthy and be a vegan. I mean, one of my kids has been a vegan for almost 20 years and is super healthy. I have incredible respect for that. And go ahead.
But then there's different kinds of vegan. Some people, like sugar's vegan. So
I know.
On a whole foods plant-based diet, you try to stay away from that.
Yeah.
So that's, the kind of the difference. There's a lot of, excuse my language, a lot of crappy foods that are vegan.
That's true.
like potato chips and stuff like that. Full of salt and so on.
True. So you would avoid, basically what you're saying is you would avoid the meat cells because they're inflammatory and don't fit with your diet, with your healthy diet. I get it. Okay, Nancy, thank you. Thanks for the vote. Thanks for the call, and nice to hear from you. Ed in Erie, Michigan. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Well, I told you, Tom, that I live on in a C-shaped extreme end of the lake area, but this is on the submersible subject. These people go out ice fishing, and they got to get rescued. They laid 2x8s across a crack in the ice, and you can picture Lake Erie in your mind, okay?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Laid out on a map. And southwest wind blows. This end of the lake is froze, and a big southwest wind blows that big iceberg out. There'll be 60. I was talking to Joyce. She said, there's been 60 people out there and equipment. Now the Coast Guard will rescue you. Now, they even got those farmers, especially on the Ohio side, because there's only about 30 miles of Michigan from me to the mouth of the Detroit River. But these farmers are now got vehicles, airboats, and fan, airplane engine boats, and rescue and charging these guys $600 a shot to go out and get their.
Oh, really? So they've privatized the rescue industry.
Well, not the people, the Coast Guard, because we got Coast Guard station in Detroit, and then the one in Toledo is 2 miles.
So the Coast Guard is collecting the people, and the airboats are collecting the equipment?
Exactly. That's all the Coast Guard will do is take you, okay,
right,
but not your equipment,
right,
okay. And so now these
so it's like a salvage operation.
It sometimes it makes national news because there's so many people that are out there, okay. Yeah. And they showed where they actually laid, there's a 2-foot crack in the ice, and they laid 2x8s across it so they could get their stuff. And like I said, in the wind comes, and they start, going to the northeast. They start big ice. The helicopters land on the flowing ice. Okay, it's that big a piece. And then you ask, now this is on the environment side. Well, how thick? Okay, nowadays my grandfather used to take about 10 to 12 inches, Tom, on Lake Erie steadily, 10 to 12 inches.
Right.
And now you might get other than 2013 and 14, there was another 10 inches. But talk about the environment, how things have changed too. You don't get that much ice in Lake Erie no more. No. I've been out in a car on it in the mid 70s was the last time. Because like I said to me,
I've heard this from friends who live on Lake Michigan. It's the same deal. It's not freezing like it used to, and this is obviously global warming. Ed, thanks for the thoughts and for sharing your experience there with us. Jeff in Dayton, Ohio. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How are you today? Can you hear me?
Yeah, just fine. What's up?
I had a question about the Supreme Court. I was given that the Congress regulates the Supreme Court to a certain extent, and I guess that would mean being able to assign someone as the Chief Justice, etc. What would be wrong with reducing the number of justices on the Supreme Court to down to 1 or 3 or some arbitrary number like that and get rid of these federalists?
I think the theory is that, just like the theory of democracy, that if you're going to crowdsource intelligence, if you're going to crowdsource democracy, if you're going to have, the people's will to the extent that you can, something as small as the Supreme Court, that the larger the number of people, the less a single error, a single corrupt justice, a single erroneous justice, the less impact they'll have. And, that makes a lot of sense to me. It sounds reasonable. And, so I also the Supreme Court has a workload that's much larger than what they're taking on. I mean, they turn down a lot of cases that they really should be taking just because they don't have the time, because they're so busy deciding all these social issue things, on behalf of the right wingers and environmental stuff like blowing up the Clean Water Act. So,
well, it wouldn't have to be permanent. They could just go back to it in a couple years.
Yeah. Well, there is that. That. All righty, Jeff, thanks for the call. Nice to hear from you. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's the Thom Hartmann program, helping you win the water cooler wars. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Right back with your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Tom in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
No problem. Hey, let's be honest. When you want to see leadership, something we can be proud about, look at what they're doing at I-95 in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
They got that thing. They got that thing. They're pouring concrete right now.
Yep.
And they're having the police escort the concrete trucks. They've rebuilt with recycled glass a temporary, cofferdam so they can have 2 lanes, north and south, in the middle where they're rebuilding the major part of it.
Yep.
They're bringing in a dryer so they can make food from NASCAR. But you look at Joe Biden, Mayor Pete, Shapiro, Fetterman coming in, but they're working with local people too. Let's get the job done. This is amazing.
It is. It really is. And can contrast that with the electric power grid down in Texas.
Or just the uselessness of them censoring Adam Schiff for doing his job, or Green and Bobo having a middle school girl fight.
Oh, and the latest one is that Boebert is saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene spit on her. I mean, I thought these were adults. Apparently not.
But you the real adults, Democrats, Republicans, are great Americans getting the job done in Philadelphia.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and it's an important point to make, and thank you for calling and making it. Tom, well said. Richard in Huntsville, Texas. Hey, Richard, thanks for watching us on Free Speech. What's up?
Oh, thank you. We're on the subject of the Supreme Court judges. Earlier, you were talking about, and I agree with you 100%, that before Fox News and before Citizens United, before you could bribe somebody illegally, you would see, you brought this up, you could see some of these far right-wing judges end up moving back to the left. But however, now, like you pointed out, that when you have billionaires holding their hand and feeding them, well, it just brought up a memory that I remember studying in history, or a quote, and it's from Upton Sinclair, and it goes like this: "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it."
Exactly.
And so I thought about that, and I thought, they understand it, though. That's not it. They do understand it, but it's more like the guest that you had on a few weeks ago, a good friend of yours. I think it was Dr. Richard Rosenstein. Rosenstein, is that right?
Oh, Richard anyway. Silverstein, yeah.
Silverstein, I'm sorry. Yeah, my memory's not near as good as yours. But and he had he did a doctorate on it, of how super successful it triggers your testosterone, which triggers your dopamine, and next thing you're all puffed up, and it's like a chemical reaction. And it's not 100%, especially for people that are smart enough to know that this can happen, so they keep it from happening. To me, that's more like what's happened to these judges. They just, the money influences them to be blind. Does that make any sense to you at all?
It does. It makes perfect sense to me, and I think that I think you've nailed it. I think and that's the point, that these billionaires are befriending these Supreme Court justices not because they want a specific outcome, but they want something much bigger than that. They want a general outcome across the whole right-wing spectrum for the entirety of these people's careers. They're trying to hold them in, I said golden handcuffs. They're trying to hold them in that right-wing sphere. Richard, thank you. Well, very well said. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So when was the last time you heard some Republican ranting about how, like Ron DeSantis, Florida's where woke goes to die, and we're declaring war on woke, and all that kind of. Republicans have been using dog whistles for most of my lifetime to shout out to their generally white racist base against various minority groups. Richard Nixon was, we're law and order, and as John Ehrlichman pointed out, his whole war on drugs was basically a war on black people and hippies. George Herbert Walker Bush had Willie Horton George W. Bush had the Muslims. Donald Trump, it's the Mexican rapists. It just never ends. Woke is just the latest dog whistle they've got. So the next time somebody uses that phrase, just, ask them, what are you talking about here? Are you just trying to tell me that you're a bigot? I mean, what are you really saying? There's a whole rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Picking up your calls here, Brenda in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Hey, Brenda, what's on your mind today?
Thank you for taking my call. I was thinking in an odd way that part of with the Supreme Court is almost, and they're always talking about grooming. Well, they take these justices. I read an article probably about 6 years ago in Newsweek about how Amy Coney Barrett was being prepared to go to the Supreme Court, and how they continually give them the gifts which they know they couldn't reciprocate, right? So they take them on fishing trips, they bond them together, they make a family together. So when you groom someone, you want to get something out of them. They wouldn't have anything to do with them if they weren't in these positions, unless they were in an equally high position. Yeah. So these people feel responsible that they have to pay them back in some way, whether they're fully aware of it or not.
Yep.
But they're smart enough to know that what they're doing is not right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a child that's being forced to do something they don't want to do, but they feel obligated to the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. You're making my point only in probably better language than I was using. But yeah, I think it's just a very straightforward grooming, influence peddling operation that these billionaires have been running for quite a number of years now. And they're going to continue until somebody does something about it. And frankly, that somebody needs to be Congress. Congress has the power to regulate the court, and they need to be doing it. Brenda, thank you. That was brilliant.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Bye.
Yep. John in Staten Island, New York. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Oh, well, it's been a while. I kind of forgot. Oh, you were talking about Donald Trump and Kendra. And you said that the difference between Donald and Kendra is Donald's a rich white man and Kendra's probably a black woman.
Well, whether she is or not, she's just an FBI agent, so she's going to prison for 3 years, and Donald is a billionaire, and he's not.
What? That's the only difference you tell your people. The people that listen to you and believe you and trust you, to tell them the truth, and that's all it is. It's not like Donald was the president and he could declassify something by just.
But he didn't declassify them, and he had access to classified documents just like Kendra did, and she took them, and he took them.
How do you know?
And I don't see the difference between the two, John.
How do you know he didn't declassify them? Let me hear.
Because he's been charged with it in court. I don't know it for a fact. A jury is going to determine that, but if they do, they should throw his ass in jail. Don't you think?
Let me ask you a question.
Wouldn't you want a criminal put in jail, John?
Then Joe Biden should be in jail.
No, Joe Biden didn't steal classified documents and lie to the FBI about them.
Oh, he took $5 million fucking bribe.
Oh, geez, there we go again. That's it for John. No more. This is the second time. My apologies if that slipped through. All right, Brian in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Good morning.
Hey, Brian. Just fine.
I didn't hear the sound.
Yeah.
You started off the show talking about the way the media covered this submersible disaster versus a boatload of immigrants drowning in the Caribbean or wherever it was.
Yeah. In the Mediterranean.
You think about the basics. Corporate media's goal is to build an audience, sell it to advertisers. That's their main goal, and make money.
Yeah.
And they want to build an audience, and they don't want to offend people. So they love simple, dramatic, movie-like stories that people can watch and be entertained by and not think too hard about. Whereas if you focus on immigrants pouring out of Africa and trying to get into Italy or wherever, it brings up a lot of other controversial issues and topics that they would just rather not talk about.
Yeah, your point is well taken.
And I think it's important that we do talk about them, but so many Americans now, they've got 15 different news channels they can click to, so they can just select the opinion that they like and listen to that.
Yeah.
And, that's the secret to Fox News. I mean, what do? They put a bunch of very attractive young women on the set all the time, and then they show stories that right-wing men want to hear about, and men will just sit there and space out and watch it over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, it's candy.
And, right. So I think it would help if all of our media would challenge the American audience to think a little harder about all the issues. You know, simple solutions aren't going to make it. That's one of the tools of fascism. You talk about fascism a lot. One of the primary tools is simple solutions to complicated problems.
Yep.
And only the dear leader has the charm and the know-how to fix it.
Yep.
You know, which is simple-minded stupidity. And I think we need to think a lot harder about a lot of issues and not just push them into a racial frame all the time like some leftist hosts like to do. Everything isn't a racial issue. Everything, it has more to do with the number of people living on planet Earth is the real issue.
Yeah, that's true too, Brian. But race is a huge factor in America, sadly. But, you know, I get your point, and that's why I brought it up. I do think it needs a serious conversation. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
As a writer, I get stuck every so often
In
straining
addition
for
to
the right
bringing you the Thom
words to
Hartmann
tell my
program here on
story.
Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Only 2 days left, arguably 1 day left. That's, you know, tomorrow, Friday. Today, you add to that, I guess you get 2 days, but only 2 days left. We're getting down to the tail end of this pledge drive, this fundraising drive. And frankly, Monday and Tuesday this week were disasters. We raised very, very little money. I don't know if my pitch wasn't strong enough or people just were exhausted from the last week, or I don't know what it was, but I got to tell you, we need your help. We need you to pitch in these last 2 days. In particular today, we are trying to unlock that $10,000. We needed 1,000 donors Wednesday and Thursday, you know, yesterday and today, and we are not even halfway there yet. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Particularly if you've never before contributed to Free Speech TV, but even if you have, call now and make your contribution and help us unlock that $10,000 from this great group of frontline funders. We really, it's a big deal. 10 grand network. So please do that. If the threshold is we have to get 1,000 donations on Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today. And if we get that 1,000 donations, we get an extra $10,000. If we don't, we don't. And of course that, you know, amplifies your contribution. I mean, whatever you may give, it becomes amplified by that addition of the $10,000. And I believe we can do it. I've seen the numbers from last week and other days, and we've had a couple of really soft days, but I believe we can do it, particularly because these are the last days, right? This is today and tomorrow. This is it. This is the end of the summer pledge drive until the fall, and we can't let this network down. We can't not pay the bills. We can't lay off employees. We can't do any of those things. We've got to keep things going. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution online. You can do it anytime. You can, but please do it today so that we get credit for this, so we can unlock that $10,000. But this is a big deal, and we're getting down to the end here, and we need your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There are, of course, premiums that come along with your donation, things that you can receive if you make your contribution now. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Clear sticker. This is a cling plastic sticker that fits in the window of your car or at home or whatever. Put it on a mirror, or which is really kind of nice. It's kind of cool. I have one at home. You can stick a glass or cup in it, and it'll hold your beverage and keep it cool in the summer. It's a useful thing. Those are all at your choice. One of those three for a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there is the Summer of Solidarity tote bag. The Summer of Solidarity tote bag is, not only beautifully designed and a nice, high quality canvas tote bag, but you're making a contribution to Free Speech TV. With the $75 gift, you have your choice of either the Free Speech TV baseball cap. It's only available here. This is the only way to get it. Or the official Thom Hartmann program mug, which is also only available to people who watch Free Speech TV and only available during pledge drives. So it's a genuine collector's item, right? With a $75 gift. With a $100 gift, a donation will be made by Free Speech TV to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is, a minority within a minority, a genuinely oppressed group, a people definitely in need of our support and our help. That's with a $100 gift. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, which does a deep dive into how this country came about. Where did this idea of democracy even come from? Was it the Greeks? Turns out it wasn't. Was it the Romans? No. It's a fascinating story about what Ben Franklin learned when he went to hang out with the Iroquois, among other things, what the French learned when they were holding these salons. It's an absolutely compelling story. And it also gives us an understanding of why things like Medicare for All make sense in a democracy. Because, the whole idea was we're all in this together. I mean, that was the whole, rather than having kings and serfs, we're all in this together. Everybody has an equal vote. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody derives some benefit, equal benefit from society, at least in theory. I think you'll find it fascinating. That's with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet. Lydia will send out a Zoom link, and you click the link, and poof, I'll be on your computer screen in your home, along with a bunch of other people, and we can have a nice conversation. With a $1,000 gift, we're organizing an in-person meet and greet here in Portland, and we'll be rolling that out in the next few weeks. So those are the premiums, but the important thing is to call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and help us out. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of our program. Greg Abbott down in Texas is getting hysterical. I'm telling you, these Republican governors, they're looking at Armageddon here. You've got half the citizens of this nation, not all women, obviously, but many women in America are just furious with these new restrictions on abortion and all of the consequences that even for women who want to have children. I mean, you know, there's huge, terrible public health consequences to these things. And then on top of that, you know, going into our schools and banning books and firing unionized teachers and trying to you know, interfere in the medical decisions of you know, trans people. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, this is just a list of horribles that have become the Republican Party, all in service of basically, you know, billionaires and white supremacy. And so Abbott, down in Texas, just vetoed a bill, House Bill 3159. It passed both the House and Senate in Texas. It was bipartisan. They, you know, I mean, legislation doesn't pass in Texas with only Democratic votes. It was co-sponsored by a Republican and a Democrat, Jeff Leach of Plano, a Republican, and John Busey, B-U-C-Y, of Austin, a Democrat. And what this legislation did is it made it possible for people who are blind or paralyzed to vote, to easily vote, to vote online or to mail in their ballots. And Greg Abbott wants it so that you've got to go to a voting station, you've got to show up so that our Proud Boy voter integrity people can challenge you at the polls, and so that you can be forced to stand in line for 3 hours if you live in Houston, you know, or any other blue part of the state, so that we can discourage you from voting. I mean, this is the bottom line. This is what he's doing. This is what it's all about. This is the fourth year in a row that Republicans and Democrats have tried to pass legislation in Texas making it easier for paralyzed and blind people to vote. And what's really ironic about this is Greg Abbott is paralyzed from the waist down, but that doesn't matter. He still realizes that disabled people are more likely to vote Democratic because the Democratic Party supports the kind of social safety net that catches disabled people and prevents them from falling into poverty or into terrible poverty. And Greg Abbott is like, oh, no, we're not going to do this. We're, what, disabled blind people voting? No. They might be Democrats. This is how restrictive it is in Texas right now. You can only vote by mail if you are 65 or older, and that's a principally Republican cohort. You are expecting to give birth 3 weeks before or after Election Day. You have a physical disability, or you're away from the county on Election Day, or you're in jail but otherwise eligible to vote. So he just vetoes the legislation to make it easier for blind people and paralyzed people to vote. This, I'm telling you, the Republicans, they know which way the wind's blowing. This is why they took over, or they set up the takeover of the election systems in Houston. Houston is 1/6 of the population of Texas lives in Houston. Houston is solid blue. And so they're going to make it so that vote in Houston, and it's hard to have the vote counted, and they'll be able to nullify votes that they don't like. You just wait. We will all see this in 2024. This is going to be, you know, Custer's last stand down there. This is the Republicans, Greg Abbott's last stand. Because Texas has the potential to be a swing state. Meanwhile, our geeky science for the day, we always thought that hurricanes just kind of stirred up the surface of the ocean. We know that they're fed, actually, by heat in the ocean. But now there's some new research, a new study that was just published in the last couple of weeks, showing that hurricanes actually cause heat waves in the deep ocean. They push heat down into the ocean, and then that heat radiates out in waves from the spot where the hurricane is above the ocean, across the ocean floor, and can travel as much as 6,000 miles. Hurricanes in the Pacific over near the Philippines are heating up the deep ocean as it approaches and comes up on shore in California and Ecuador. Now, what this means is that in a world with more heat, more of that heat is being transferred deeper into the ocean by these hurricanes, and that is speeding up the bleaching of coral. It's speeding up the killing off of species that are temperature sensitive, or the forcing of species to migrate and move because they just, their food supplies are not available at those temperatures, or they don't survive well at those temperatures. The article about this over at theconversation.com notes that for over 2 decades, scientists have debated whether the warm waters that are mixed downward by hurricanes could heat ocean currents and thereby shape global climate patterns. Now we find the heat injected by the typhoons in the Philippine Sea, for example, have been found to have flowed to the coasts of Ecuador and California. The excess heat from the hurricanes may contribute to stressed coral and bleached coral far from where the storms appeared. Just a little more data that we are doing some serious damage to our planet, because for 50 years now, fossil fuel companies have been lying to us and buying politicians in the United States and around the world to keep making a profit selling their product as they go on to destroy the world. Funny story today. A Republican political strategist, Joey Manorino, tweeted this morning, and I quote, "Wokeness killed the people on that submarine. Let that sink in. They died because the woke CEO said he wouldn't hire 50-year-old white men who knew how to command submarines and would rather train others. And the CEO died too. That's the next level of go woke, go broke." Really? Yeah, it's true that the CEO at one point said that, most of the submarine pilots out there are, quote, 50-year-old white guys. By the way, Kendra Hendricks, I think it is, the FBI agent who's going to jail in Kansas City. Turns out she's white, just to clear that up. But in any case, he said, I want our team to be younger, to be more inspirational. I'm not going to inspire 16-year-olds to pursue marine technology, but a 25-year-old, he says, as an old white guy, I'm not doing it, but a 25-year-old sub-pilot or platform operator or one of our techs can be inspirational. So we're really trying to get very intelligent, motivated younger people involved. Now, what he was talking about was not race, it was age. And he got a younger pilot, but the guy was fully competent. And it's got nothing to do with wokeness. This submarine, in all probability, imploded because the viewport was only certified to 1,300 meters, and they were at 4,000 meters. Or something else. I mean, eventually we may find out if they succeed in recovering all the debris from that debris field. But Republicans are already at it. Oh my God, he was woke. Meanwhile, a meteorologist, this is, kind of sad news, in Des Moines, Iowa, meteorologist Chris Gloninger, one of the top meteorologists at KCCI, the city's CBS affiliate, has resigned, saying that he's resigned because he's getting death threats for reporting the impacts of climate change. And another news story for you here, and then I'll sign off and pick up your calls. RFK Jr. says that Russia acted in good faith when they attacked Ukraine. Yeah, right. Oh, man, what is going on with these people? I do not get it. Good faith? Attacking your neighbor? Bombing them? Sending soldiers in with a mandate to rape women as a weapon of war? Planting landmines everywhere? Trying to bomb the capital city? That's good faith? Really? Come on, Bobby, you're smarter than that. Anyhow, 15 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with your calls on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Margot in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Hey, Margot, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Well, your screener thought I was disagreeing with you. That'd be a cold day in the hot spot.
Okay.
But the man called in and said reducing the Supreme Court, and you said, well, we need more minds. And I'm looking at the politicians, the number of politicians now that we have that we're paying for. They're all idiots. They don't get along. What is the answer? Tom, what is the answer? Is it education? Do kids not get civics now? Do people not remember when they were in high school? Do they not remember, if they're Christians, do they not remember what they were taught? We hate everybody now. Have they read a science book?
Probably not.
When an embryo develops, it all comes together, all those little cells. We've had, even the indigenous people have said, we've had gay people in their communities, and they accepted it, and they went on with it. But we called them savages. They weren't savages. They're brighter than these white supremacists that go on and on about it. Please help me understand what the idiocy is in this country. I'm 77 years old, and I'm praying to die.
No, you're not. You don't want to do that, Mark.
I can't stand it anymore.
Yeah, well, it's not that bad. I mean, America's in some ways in a really good place. There's a broad awakening happening. I agree with Neil Howe that the fourth turning is here, and the last thing I would ever want you to do, or anybody to do, is feel like they want to die because of the situation in the world that I'm reporting. I mean, it's. I find some of it comical, but come on, Margot, we've got to fight.
They're a fascist. We are going to be a fascist country.
I don't think so.
If people don't wake up.
Well, that's if people don't wake up. I would agree with you in posing it as a if then, but the fact of the matter is that people are waking up.
I hope you're right, Tom, and I believe everything you say. I love Free Speech TV, and people out there, donate.
Yeah. Thank you, Margot. Thank you. It's I am absolutely convinced that we have been kind of in the wilderness now for 40 years in this era of neoliberalism, Reaganism, neoliberalism. That's why I wrote the book, The Hidden History of Neoliberalism, how Reaganism guided America.
I learned so much from you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Margot. And I'm actually very optimistic. I think that America is standing on the edge of a really positive moment. And we've got, this whole Zoomer generation coming up. This is the most progressive generation.
Oh, God.
Certainly in my lifetime.
I hope.
They are awake. They are woke. Margot, I got to run.
You're right.
But thank you for the call. And, keep the faith.
Thank
Smile.
you, Tom.
Right? Okay.
You're wonderful.
Thank you, Margot. Good talking to you. It's 19 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. Welcome back. 20 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here today. Paul in Ambler, Pennsylvania. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm just really bugged when I listen to our fellow progressives and people on the left, especially when it comes to the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. They seem to think that it's the other way around, that it's a proxy war that was coerced out of the Russians because of their deadly mortal fear that NATO was going to invade them at any minute. And if Ukraine ever joined NATO, that would have been it. It would have been a massacre of NATO
which is
and
patently nonsense. And NATO is purely a defensive force, first off, and secondly, there wasn't even, there was no serious discussion of Ukraine becoming part of NATO at the time that Russia invaded them. They just want the land. Ukraine is incredibly rich land. I mean, it's the size of Texas, and it's got the land of Indiana. It's the breadbasket of Europe. It's the largest country in Europe. They've got, and also in the Donbass, they just discovered, a year and a half ago, they just discovered a huge lithium mine there. The Russians now are occupying that area.
Well, the other thing is, Russia's a nuclear power.
Right.
After the United States, Russia's the biggest arms dealer in the world. They make jet fighters, jet bombers, tanks, naval ships, aircraft. I mean, there's like nothing that they do. Nuclear weapons. Yeah. They're the biggest arms dealer in the world after the United States. No one is ever going to attack Russia. It's the reason why the Iranians have been trying to get nuclear weapons with their uranium centrifugal machines. It's the reason why the North Koreans adopted atomic weapons. Once you've achieved that status, everyone who's supposed to be educated and keeps pointing out all these international relations experts when they talk about Russia, everyone knows that the other absolute cardinal rule is you don't attack a nuclear power. Yeah. Russia has nothing to worry about. It's a bold-faced lie, and it's like the last thing anybody wants to do. And here's the other thing, Tom, that really bugs me. What has Europe accomplished? They have completely deconstructed the modern nation state, which they basically developed. The European Union has torn down national borders. You can live in Barcelona, have a job in Paris, and then go vacation in Cyprus. There's nothing else like it in the modern world.
That's true. Well, the United States is a lot like that,
The United States wants to build, but you 500 million people, there's nothing quite like that. And they're doing the exact opposite. The minute that the Eastern Bloc countries were freed from the Soviet Union, they immediately ran to Europe. Yep. And they joined it. They willingly gave up a piece of their sovereignty. They took away their boundaries. I mean, you remember growing up, you watch a movie, you see someone taking a train across Europe. Every 30 minutes, somebody dressed up like a Nazi SS trooper would get on and go, papers.
I had that experience. Louise and I took a train across Belarus. We took, and we also took a train across East Germany. And, in both cases, the guys with the German Shepherds and the guns coming through the cars, every 20, 30 minutes. I've been there, done that, seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and now the world has 500 million people who've thrown away their borders. And are they in chaos? Are they being destroyed as a culture?
Life
as
is better than ever.
No. And they're the people that are the warriors. They're the people that are the warmongers. Who helped the United States when we wanted to get out of the British Empire? The French and Lafayette, the Polish. There was a guy named Pulaski in Philadelphia. We have a street named after him. The other countries in the world, now maybe not for the best of reasons, but what did they do? They lent us money, they sent us arms, and they let us fight for our freedom.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything any different. We're not attacking the Russians. The Russians invaded Ukraine.
Right, and we're helping Ukraine defend itself. I completely agree.
We're doing the same.
Yep, very well said.
We're doing the same thing Russia does. Russia sells weapons to everyone and their mother around the world. We're sending weapons over to the Ukrainians. Tough.
Yeah.
Deal with it, Putin.
There you go. Paul, thank you. Spot on. Dan in St. Louis, Missouri. Hey, Dan, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. What's on your mind?
I just got a quick hitter. This drives me nuts when these people bring up the classified documents versus the unclassified documents. Documents that Trump had after January 6th were not his. And it was a crime to have those documents, whether it was unclassified or classified.
Correct.
It doesn't make any difference.
No, the word classified does not appear in this indictment.
Right. And the Presidential Records Act says that those records, when he leaves office, those records become the property of the National Archive, and they are not his.
Correct.
And the crime is holding the documents classified or unclassified. And I just wish more people would point that out, because they think that makes a difference. It doesn't make a difference.
Well, it's Mark Twain's old saying, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth gets its boots on. The Republicans are relying on this, that they can just lie through their teeth. That obviously Trump has relied on this his whole entire life. It's the foundation of his business empire and of his political successes. And, they just think, we can just BS our way through anything. And, truth be told, they have had a lot of success doing that.
Right. Well, I hope Trump enjoys prison, because that's where he's going.
I sure hope so, Dan. I sure hope so. It's very rare that a billionaire goes to prison, but this would be a good one. Dan, thank you so much for the call. It's 27 minutes past the hour. We're picking up your phone calls. I'll be right back with more of them, more of you, on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where smart people get their news. Back with your calls in just a moment. Only 2 days left, arguably 1 day left. That's, tomorrow, Friday. Today, you add to that, I guess you get 2 days, but only 2 days left. We're getting down to the tail end of this pledge drive, this fundraising drive. And frankly, Monday and Tuesday this week were disasters. We raised very, very little money. I don't know if my pitch wasn't strong enough, or people just were exhausted from the last week, or I don't know what it was, but I got to tell you, we need your help. We need you to pitch in these last 2 days. In particular, today, we are trying to unlock that $10,000. We needed 1,000 donors Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today, and we are not even halfway there yet. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Particularly if you've never before contributed to Free Speech TV, but even if you have, call now and make your contribution and help us unlock that $10,000 from this great group of frontline funders. We really, it's a big deal. 10 grand is a lot of money for this little network. So please do that. If the threshold is we have to get 1,000 donations on Wednesday and Thursday, yesterday and today. And if we get that 1,000 donations, we get an extra $10,000. If we don't, we don't. And of course that, amplifies your contribution. I mean, whatever you may give, it becomes amplified by that addition of the $10,000. And I believe we can do it. I've seen the numbers from, last week and other days, and we've had a couple of really soft days, but I believe we can do it, particularly because these are the last days, right? This is, today and tomorrow, this is it. This is the end of the summer pledge drive until, the fall. And we can't let this network down. We can't, not pay the bills. We can't lay off employees. We can't do any of those things. We've got to keep things going. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution online. You can do it anytime. You can, but please do it today so that we get credit for this, so we can unlock that $10,000. But this is a big deal, and we're getting down to the end here, and we need your help. So please call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. There are, of course, premiums that come along with your donation, things that you can receive if you make your contribution now. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, proud student of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV clear sticker. This is a cling plastic sticker that fits on the window of your car or at home or whatever. Put it on a mirror, or which is really kind of nice. It's kind of cool. I have one at home. You can stick a glass or cup in it, and it'll hold your beverage and keep it cool. in the summer. You know, it's a useful thing. Those are all at your choice, one of those three for a $20 gift. With a $50 gift, there is the Summer of Solidarity tote bag. The Summer of Solidarity tote bag is, you know, not only beautifully designed and a nice, you know, high quality canvas tote bag, but, you know, you're making a contribution to Free Speech TV. With the $75 gift, you have your choice of either the Free Speech TV baseball cap. It's only available here. This is the only way to get it. Or the official Thom Hartmann program mug, which is also only available to people who watch Free Speech TV and only available during pledge drives. So it's a genuine collector's item, right? With a $75 gift. With a $100 gift, a donation will be made by Free Speech TV to the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is, you know, a minority within a minority, a genuinely oppressed group, a people definitely in need of our support and our help. That's with $100. The $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, which does a deep dive into how this country came about. Where did this idea of democracy even come from? Was it the Greeks? Turns out it wasn't. Was it the Romans? No. It's a fascinating story about what Ben Franklin learned when he went to hang out with the Iroquois, among other things, what the French learned when they were holding these salons. It's an absolutely compelling story. And it also gives us an understanding of why things like Medicare for All make sense in a democracy. Because, you know, the whole idea was we're all in this together. I mean, that was the whole, rather than having kings and serfs, we're all in this together. Everybody has an equal vote. And of course, if that's the case, then everybody derives some benefit, equal benefit from society, at least in theory. I think you'll find it fascinating. That's with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, there's the virtual meet and greet. Lydia will send out a Zoom link, and you know, you click the link, and poof, I'll be on your computer screen in your home, along with a bunch of other people, and we can have a nice conversation. With a $1,000 gift, we're organizing an in-person meet and greet here in Portland, and we'll be rolling that out in the next few weeks. So those are the premiums, but the important thing is to call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and help us out. Thank you so much. National trade policy, to immigration policy, to housing. We've got all kinds of topics. The wars between Republicans and Democrats, the Republican efforts to induce fascism in the United States. A great selection of opinions will be found over at HartmannReport.com. The MAGA Republicans have a plan for America. It involves something called fascism. It's a three-step plan, actually, to take over America and turn us into a fascist state. They're following the example of Vladimir Putin in Russia and Viktor Orban in Hungary. Viktor Orban, who is held up by conservatives as the example of how a country should be run. You know, he came to Texas to give a speech to CPAC and got a standing ovation. So the three steps. Number one, take over the electoral systems and basically rig them, along with massive gerrymandering. Number two, build a fascist base by mobilizing hate against minorities, gender minorities, racial minorities, religious minorities, while merging with one of the large factions of a church and the billionaires in the country. And number three, seize control of state power and turn the criminal justice system against your enemies. There's an op-ed about the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, Revealed, the MAGA Republicans' Three-Step Plan for Classic Fascism. Check it out. Past the hour, picking up your calls. Dave in Oregon, Oregon. Hey, Dave, where's Oregon, Oregon?
It's on the east side, over by Pendleton.
Ah, okay. All righty. So what's up?
Well, simply stated, you know, I was listening to you this morning, and I came to the conclusion that wouldn't it be great if all politicians and even people in the judicial system had a 80-year limit in their serving? I mean, when they turn 80 or are about to turn 80, they should not run again.
Well, I think generally speaking, people don't. I mean, we're about to have a president, Joe Biden, who will be over 80. It didn't work out that well for the senator from Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, but I mean, she's in her 90s now, so I think that nature just kind of takes care of that, Dave. I don't think we need a rule for it.
For the most part, but they seem to, that seems to be more and more.
Biden certainly seems peppy enough. I saw Harrison Ford the other day. He's in his 80s, and or I believe he is, maybe in the late 70s, and he was, Indiana Jones. He was totally kicking ass. He's got a new movie out. Clint Eastwood is still making movies. I think he's in his 90s. They've got, there's drugs now, right? People are taking rapamycin to stop aging. There's the vegan diet apparently slows down aging dramatically. I mean, and people don't smoke anymore. They're cutting back on their drinking. And Joe Biden is just, his brain is working just as good as mine does. So I think that we need to do this on a case-by-case basis. I'm not a fan of mandatory retirement. I certainly wouldn't want to be subject to it. But Dave, thank you. Thanks for the call. It's an interesting topic, and I'm glad you called and brought it up. Maybe somebody else will have, a different idea, or they'll corroborate yours. Ken in Forest Falls, California. Hey, Ken, what's on your mind today?
Oh, bingo, Tom! I finally got you. I don't believe it. Woo.
Make the most Tom, of it. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I got a suggestion for you on and I had to tell your receptionist that I'm a lefty, not a righty. But the guy that made the comment that Biden has taken $5 million in bribes. I've got a friend that says crap like that too. Excuse my language, but tell him to prove it. Tell him to show us that evidence.
Yeah, there is none. I mean, the so-called witness that Ted Cruz and Jim Jordan and all these guys are all hysterical about. James Comer subpoenaed the FBI to get that document, and now they're saying, oh well, the witness is dead. And it was, this is the whole argument that they keep coming back to, is that Biden lobbied Ukraine to fire the prosecutor. Well, they wanted to fire the prosecutor because he was corrupt. And yeah, it was the prosecutor who was supposed to prosecute Burisma, which Biden's son was on the board of, but he was refusing to do it because he was being paid off. That's why they wanted to fire him. I mean, we were working to prosecute Burisma and going after these corrupt politicians. And now there is no $5 million bribe. There is no tape. There is no whistleblower. There is a document that the FBI has that claims that there might be these things, but that came from a source inside Ukraine who was close to Putin. I mean, from 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. So it's a sad joke, Ken. But this is what they do. If they can get the words Joe Biden and bribe, and then you throw in the $5 million to make it seem like, oh, it's specific. It's weirdly specific. That must be true. If they can get that on this program, if they can get it on CBS News, if they can get it on CNN, then they think they've won.
Yeah. Now, I've got another friend that accused Biden of being a criminal, and I told him Trump is the criminal, and we went off on that. But but tell him to prove it.
Trump is the one who's been charged with crimes. So I am with you. Ken, thank you. Thank you for the call. Spot on. Brant in Travels Rest, North Carolina. Hey, Brant, what's on your mind today?
Okay, wow. First-time caller.
Well, thank you.
Travelers Rest, South Carolina.
Uh-huh. Oh, South Carolina. Okay, I'll fix that. My apologies.
South Carolina, yes,
you got it.
I am very much in a red state.
Okay.
Could I did have a question for you, but could I encourage your former caller, Margot, that I am that voter that changed? That from 1988 to 2004, I voted straight Republican. And I haven't voted for them since 2005.
In other words, you're one of those folks who woke up and therefore don't despair.
Exactly. I woke up in 2005 because the Iraq War was more than I could take.
Yeah.
Particularly when we found out it was all a lie.
Yeah.
My question was, even if who's behind the dark money in politics is exposed, do you think the corporate media will ever really tell us who they are?
Behind the what?
Behind the dark money in politics.
Oh, yeah. You know, we have a sense of it. I mean, there's some of these very, very large dark money groups. Donors Trust is one of the big ones that, you know, nobody really knows who the billionaires are who are pouring, you know, in some cases, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars into these organizations. But the problem is we have no law to mandate that, Brant. I mean, the Supreme Court legalized all this in 2010 with Citizens United.
The Citizens United, yeah.
Yeah, and this is what, you know, I think the number one job that Congress has to address is reversing Citizens United, is getting us out of this doom loop where we've got, you know, a small, if you're willing to put, if you have the ability to put, you know, $100 million into politics, which is not unusual, by the way, these days, or even $1 million into politics, that's $1 million more than most Americans can put in, or it's you know, it's an order of magnitude more. And what it does is it stifles the votes of average people, and that's just wrong. It's just wrong. We used to have laws that protected us against that.
Right. And I'm one of those who did not realize how deep their hands were in what was going on in our government. Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Could I add that we made a donation last week to Free Speech TV?
Well, good on you, Brant.
You know, encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, it's a great organization. They carry our program live on Dish and Direct, and of course on the internet on freespeech.org, and they are in pledge drive right now. So, as are many of our Pacifica affiliates as well. And so, good on you for supporting them.
Right, and I'm watching you on Sling TV, by the way.
Yep. That's how we watch it at home. Louise is watching me on Sling right now, and you know, they've had some technical problems Sling has recently, but I think we've got it fixed, and they're doing a great job. Brant, I need to move along, but thank you for the call. Thanks for your kind words, and I hope you call again.
Thank you.
Okay, good to hear from you.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Yep. Mark in Montevideo, Minnesota. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, Montevideo, just like the old video store.
Okay, got it.
It's in rural southwest Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, I was watching, and overall, Tom, I do watch it quite frequently, and I agree with the majority of your stances, social and political. But earlier today, you kind of said something about RFK Jr. and his view on the Ukraine war.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little concerned that you haven't really listened to his overall views on that subject.
I
mean, he calls Putin a thug and a criminal and all those things. And
well, that's all good.
He wants peace there, and he's not. I don't think he's a crackpot about this subject at all.
Then, you know, well, here's the quotes that I have. I mean, and this is basically all I have. This is from Raw Story today. And it says, during an interview on Sirius XM's The Briefing with Steve Scully, he said that he thinks Russia acted in, quote, good faith with its invasion of Ukraine and blamed the U.S. for the war. In fact, these are quotes. Putin has repeatedly said yes. In fact, he negotiated 2 times. He agreed to agreements. He agreed to the Minsk Accord, and then he agreed in 2022 to an agreement that would have left Ukraine completely intact. I don't believe that most of that is true. And the Minsk Accord has got nothing to do with this. He goes on to say it was us who forced Zelensky to sabotage the agreement. It was already signed. So, you know, the Russians were acting. I'm just not buying it. Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine has no obligation to negotiate with a country that invaded them.
But I think those are handpicked. I think if you were to look at his overall conversations that he's had over the last month about Ukraine, I think you'll find that there's a lot of things involved. And myself, personally, you know, I look at this being an ex-Marine and having combat experience back in the Vietnam War. You know, these wars, we started this war. I mean, if you think for some reason that these...
Russia started the war in Ukraine.
We have... No, I didn't say that. I take that back. What we are participating as arms dealers in that war.
Because we're helping defend a fellow democracy against an autocratic fascist regime that's bombing the crap out of them. Come on, Mark.
I understand, but wait a minute, Tom. We started with economic sanctions. That's what's going to settle it. If you go back and
we
listen
put
to
economic
Biden,
sanctions on Russia after they invaded Ukraine.
I understand that, but that was going to settle this.
No,
we
it
were
wasn't. It was still. It was an attempt to slow them down.
Horrific to their
come on, Mark.
That they'd have to back out. And now we're over a year into this, Tom.
We're not over a year into it. Russia is. This war ends, Mark, the day that Russia stops bombing Ukraine. That's when the war ends. There is one entity that can end this war, and that's Russia. All they have to do is stop the invasion and withdraw the troops that they have on somebody else's territory. It's that simple. We'll be back. It's 46 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Fair and only slightly unbalanced. I'll be back with more of your calls right after this. And welcome back, Rick in Fair Oaks, California. Hey, Rick, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
And supporter. I just wanted to bring up a point about the submarine. I saw a picture of it with the cowling off, and you could see it's a smooth cylinder. And also looking in the interior also is smooth. So I'm assuming that there are no ribs installed on the cylinder. And if you don't have ribs on it, you can't possibly calculate the crush depth, because when it's going down and it gets those kind of pressures on it, the ovality of the cylinder is very important, because once it goes out of ovality, then you're in great danger of it
it pancakes.
Crushing in. Yeah. It's different from a sphere. A sphere distributes the pressure all the way around, but a cylinder is different.
Right.
And the man that worked on this or designed it and all, he was an aerospace guy, and space deals with containing pressure, and this, what he got into here with the submarine is to resist pressure, and so the design has to be different.
Yeah. So you think that there's a fundamental design flaw from the get-go on this thing?
Yeah. I think that it wasn't. They probably, made it thick enough so that they thought they had, the 500% safety factor.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is a possible ovality, and when you weld struts onto the cylinder like they have to mount the thrusters, you're putting areas of stress on the cylinder in those areas that could precipitate ovality issues, and especially if they didn't autoclave or heat the entire cylinder to relieve the stress.
Are you an engineer?
No, but I am I've been at this a long time. When I was 18, I built a underwater habitat.
Really?
And I put it in Folsom Lake, California, at 30 feet, and I lived in it for 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, this was a long time ago.
That had to be fascinating.
Yeah, even then, I had studied how to put something like that together. And
well, 30 feet is still a lot of pressure.
Yeah, well, we were open. It was a pressure equalized cylinder, so I had a hat.
So you just popped your ears on the way down and on the way back up again.
Right.
Yeah, I
you
get
could go in and out of it. You know, it had a trunk.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Rick, thanks a lot for the call. It's fascinating.
Okay.
I'm telling you, we got some of the smartest people on earth watching this program, listening to this program. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting progressive talk radio and tag you're it. You know, when Volodymyr Zelensky became president of Ukraine, he was dealing with one of the more corrupt countries, a legacy of the Soviet time, with a number of very, very corrupt oligarchs who basically owned politicians. One of them, like Viktor Medvedchuk, was essentially the Rupert Murdoch of Ukraine. He owned a television network and a bunch of TV stations and was constantly pumping out right-wing poison and tearing people apart. And he owned a bunch of politicians. So, and this is the part most Americans don't know. Last June, a new law came into effect. It was passed the year before in Ukraine that basically says to the oligarchs in Ukraine, you can stay rich if you want, but you can't use your money to influence politics. No more oligarchs in politics. They called it de-oligarchization. Seriously. There's a whole piece about it over at hartmanreport.com. Check it out. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Joe in Bowling Green, Ohio. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind?
Hey, you had that caller talking about how cool the EU is, and that reminded me that one of the things the European Union has done is gone way hard into wind and solar, especially prompted by the Ukraine war. And in fact, in May, just this past month, May 2023, EU generated more power with wind and solar than with all their fossil fuel plants combined.
I saw that in Nature magazine yesterday, and in fact, I was going to put it on as a Geeky Science, and then, I don't know, I spaced it or something. But yeah, that's a big news. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that should be headlines, because so many people said that's impossible. You can never have that much wind and solar in a grid. And, they're all wrong. We can do this all with wind and solar and storage. And I just thought it's a nice upbeat story. It is, Joe, and thank you very much for calling and making that point. It's something that everybody should know about. And, and the EU is also rapidly mandating that internal combustion engines, now they haven't done this Europe-wide yet, but Norway started the ball rolling and several other countries are picking up on it, that, within 5 or 10 years, no more internal combustion engines. So they're getting serious about this. Joe, thank you for the call. Mary in Casper, Wyoming. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Well, I just happened to see on the news today that the Supreme Court struck down a treaty that was in 1888 for the Indians, saying that our country basically was responsible to make sure that they got water.
That's right. And now you've got an Indian reservation that they've been having to truck water into it for some time now, and it's going to get worse.
Yes. Well, and I was a travel nurse back in, I think it was 2005, and I was in Albuquerque, and I took care of a lot of the Navajo people there. And, there was a lady who, she had an infection in her foot or whatever, but she was like at the place where normally the patient would go home and take care of it at home. And the doctor told us that, no, we're going to have to get creative for reasons as to why she can stay here, because they have no running water on the reservation. Right. They don't even have running water. Yeah, they're trucking water in for people to use to take showers and wash their dishes, untreated water. You're right. Oh, my God. And now the Supreme Court tells them, tough luck, Charlie. Yeah, but wasn't Sean Penn doing something about that a long time ago, I heard? I don't recall. Oh, gee. But yeah, I'm with you. This is one of the stories that didn't quite make it in today. But, actually, the Supreme Court ruling came during the first hour while we were on the air. But it appears that that's exactly what it is. Mary, I need to move along, but thank you for the call. Pete in Bellevue, Washington. Hey, Pete, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I've been thinking a lot about, and somebody brought this up earlier, But when we look at nuclear technology, that's going on 100 years old now. It's about 85 years old at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So to think that this should be kept under wraps forever is kind of unrealistic. And not only that, when you look at countries like North Korea, why have they never been intact? What would have happened if Libya would have kept their nuclear weapons, or if the Ukraine would have kept their nuclear weapons? That's what saved North Korea. And to think that's not going to be a tremendous expansion over the next 2 decades, I think is very unrealistic. And it's something people need to start talking about.
Yeah, nuclear proliferation. It is, you know, you're right. Having nuclear weapons, I mean, this is obviously why Iran and North Korea want to have them, is to prevent the possibility of aggression from other countries. And that's, you know, defensive nuclear weapons makes a certain amount of sense. But the concern is that both of those countries will turn them offensive. Pete, thanks for the call. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It does require all of us, and that includes you. So there's so much you can do. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the people around you.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.